Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast. Here for another round review, round 24, done and dusted. It's in the back books, in and behind us, but we're here looking ahead to round 25 and talking everything that was in round 24. Joined by the NRL Fantasy Fanatics in William and Callum. How are we, lads?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good, thanks for having us on.
Oh, really enjoy. My pleasure to have you both on. It's been a long time in the making, this, hasn't it? We've sort of been in touch since we both sort of started we all sort of started in the deep end this year, and it's taken us a long time to get here, but here we are. But look, before we get into that, do you guys want to sort of take your time, both of you have a bit of time to shine here and talk about what you guys get up to over on NRL Fantasy Fanatics? We'll start with you, Will. What do you get up to over there?
Yeah, well, firstly, I'd personally like to thank Daniel Long and the Casual Athlete just for all the support that they've shown us, and I know that they've shown you by like the Rising Stars group chat and just like kind of mentoring us in this first year. So yeah, on behalf of us and all the other podcasts, we'd really like to thank Daniel. And just over at NRL Fantasy Fanatics, we pretty much just talk all things fantasy and just in general rugby league. You know, we're both big on Supercoach for fantasy and BBL Supercoach and NRL Supercoach along with NRL Fantasy. So I know that the DMs are always open and we pretty much reply to every DM we get and just love fantasy and always, they're always looking to plays to bring interest. And my goal one day is to win NRL Fantasy overall.
Love that. Callum, how's the journey been so far for you?
Yeah, started with Will. It was just a little back pocket thing. He messaged me. He was like, "Oh, mate, you wanna start this do an NRL Fantasy Fanatics podcast?" And we always love fantasy. I was like, "Mate, why not?" So it's just been here and it's taken off now. Like, you won't see us too off fantasy, honestly. Like, we're on NRL statistics.com 24/7, mate. We love all things NRL. So yeah.
No, I love that, boys. I'm in very much the same boat. Haven't dabbled too much in fantasy. Back in the early days I did, but of course I switched to the more superior fantasy game, and that is Supercoach, of course. But it's good to know that you guys dabble in that as well. And as you guys said, massive shout out to the Casual Athlete. The work that they've done to sort of build up a bit of a community, a little family in the content creation realm. Without them, we probably don't talk. We don't really get to interact, and we don't get to grow the way that we have been without the Casual Athlete. So a massive thank you to them. But lads, let's jump into round 24. So of course, the first game of round 24 kicked us off with the Melbourne Storm defeating the Penrith Panthers 24-22. This is a crazy game, one of the best games of the season, which is, earmarked at the beginning. As soon as you see when these two teams clash, you note that one down, you buy the tickets and you plan your holiday well in advance to get to this game. And what a game we actually were treated to. But I guess the big news coming out of it, more so than the Storm getting the win, is the news of Nathan Cleary going down with another injury. Will, mate, how does that affect the Panthers going forward? And maybe you can touch on a bit of the Supercoach and fantasy realm as well here, mate.
Well, I think Nathan is probably the greatest player I think the game's ever been graced with or will go down. I know personally I've got a massive soft spot for Nathan Cleary. And, just what he did in that last grand final, he's the Iceman. I do think the Panthers don't win without him, but I also think the Panthers have so much more attack in them that they don't need Cleary to finish the season off well. Like, I think Luai can steady the boat at 7, and I think you got Edwards there who's going to take more rain, and you got everyone there. But personally, I don't think the Melbourne Storm are contenders. I think they're pretenders. I think there's only really one contender, which is the Penrith Panthers, with or without Cleary. I mean, we all know what he can do. And, just talking on the fantasy side, he got that 48, got taken off early, but I think he's gone for the regular season, so he's probably selling fantasy-wise.
Yeah, he is gone for the regular season, believed to be back probably round 1 of finals, but who really knows? They'll be pretty conservative with him. As you said, they've got Luai that can come in, and he's done a tremendous job at halfback throughout points of this season, so they won't want to rush Cleary back. They can even afford to lose, first week of finals, as they are essentially locking up a top 2 spot, definitely a top 4 spot. But saying the Storm are pretenders, mate, that is a very, very big call. Callum, what do you make of that? What are your thoughts on this game, man?
Thoughts? I was on my edge of my seat the whole match, to be honest. But I feel like Storm are Storm are there this year. They've been so impressive on top of the ladder, holding it there down. We definitely see that outside backs are impressive. I just got to say Jack Howarth was pretty impressive defensively. He didn't have too much attacking involvement, but he was definitely impressive for the young gun, and I think he could even win them a premiership. Jack Howarth is a freak, as we see him schoolboy level. But just their forwards I'd like to touch on. The Storm's forwards, just unsung heroes. Like Eli Katoa really did well there, scoring those 2 tries. Josh King has been just so consistent week in, week out. Even last year, he was awesome. And Sean Blaw's been playing an absolute role for them. And we know as Harry Grant at captain, we know what Harry can do. Like, he's an absolute weapon, and also Trent Liero. But one guy who just can't get himself out of the game is Tyrone Wishart. Even off the bench, you can see him there scoring a try at the end. But yeah, I just think they've got a lot of unsung heroes who I think can bring them to a premiership, in my opinion, the Storm.
100%, mate. There's a few players that you mentioned there, starting with Jack Howarth. He's actually the very first note I've got on here other than the Nathan Cleary injury. You mentioned his defense, and that's something that I think was probably the biggest worry that people had with Jack Howarth coming into the grades, and maybe was a worry that people had in why it's taken him so long to get in here. But for him to essentially be a back rower of most parts coming through the grades, to get shifted out to centre, which is the hardest place on the field to defend. If you've played at footy and you've found yourself shifted out in the centres, you're dreading it no matter what position you've come from to do it. It's just one of those ones where every decision you make is really integral to your team surviving in defence. And he's come in and he's been phenomenal in that area, which is something that they very much need. It's in so much sense that the Panthers just kept attacking down Nick Meaney's edge. They did not want to go down that Jack Howarth edge. And sure, that's probably because you can attribute the Cleary factor as well. But I thought Jack Howarth, his defense is incredible. But for someone of his size, he moves so well as well, has really good late footwork. He's so strong in contact, really hard to really get down to the ground in first contact. I thought he was really, really good in this one. And you can really see why he was a player earmarked for the future. But he also mentioned there Trent Liero. I think his role this season for such a young age has been incredible, and there's a reason he was called up to the Queensland side so early, just to get that experience. He's going to be a gun of the future, Trent Liero, and someone that they needed in that lock forward role. Obviously, Josh King sort of being in that role in the previous few seasons. He just goes in there, does his work, makes his tackles, does his hit-ups. But Trent Liero brings a bit more to their attack, and that's just so terrifying when you've got a spine of Ryan Papenhuyzen, Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes, and Harry Grant. So I definitely think the Storm can go all the way. I think, you can say, it's a 2-point win and Panthers played the last 15, 20 minutes without Nathan Cleary. Sure, but I don't know. I think this Storm team has it. To be honest, I haven't been overly convinced by either of these two teams this year. I think they've got a lot of scrappy wins and a lot of tight losses that they probably shouldn't lose. But the thing is, they're so far ahead of the rest of the competition despite that, which is why, I don't know, I do think these two are favourites. I think, substantially over maybe the Roosters in third place. But I still wouldn't rule anyone out. I think Panthers are probably still my favourites. But after this game from the Storm, I think they're right up there. And the last man I wanted to mention, Tyrone Wishart, you said him off the bench. God, another team has to be snatching at his heels because he's playing some fantastic footy and he plays too well to be coming off that bench, doesn't he, Will?
Yeah, he does. I know for me, fantasy-wise, he was an absolute killer not owning him. But, you saw just that dummy and score the try. He was unreal. He's been kind of their Mr. Fix-It for years on years now, and he's kind of really started to show why they persisted with him so much. And I think he's kind of like the Nico Hines, where he needs to leave the Storm if he wants to get a spot, because I'm talking about Harry Grant, probably the best hooker in the game. Jerome Hughes, one of the best sevens. Munster, one of the best sixes in the game. There's not really a spot for Wishart unless he turns into a smaller-bodied 13. But as you said, Trent Liero's playing very well there. I know personally, as a Tigers fan, we would love to have him over at the Tigers and would do anything for him. But I do think that he's the one player that can win it for the Storm. I know it's, again, a massive shout considering all the players they've got, but I just think he's a player that goes under the radar, so quick, always there in support from what I've seen, just works very hard, really good in defense for a halfback, and I think he's going to play a vital role if they have to win it.
100%, mate. I mean, we look back to finals last year when they were without, was it Munster in finals or either Munster or Hughes in finals, and he stepped up in those big games, and he was incredible last season. Played a massive role for them this season. I'd love to, if I was any other club in the NRL, I'd be snatching at his heels. We talked about it a lot in the last couple of podcasts, talking to Bergs and whatnot, and Joey. I really think the Dragons would do great for signing him. Kyle Flanagan, when they brought him to the club, he wasn't meant to be their 5'8". He was meant to be a backup hooker, and Ronald Volkman from the Warriors was meant to be that 5'8". And then that whole injury and saga went down. Kyle Flanagan, he's done an admirable job in that 6 role, but God, if the Dragons could get their hands on Tyron Wisher, I think they'd do great things. But yeah, it's a very interesting game, this one. I think both these teams, they take a lot out of it. I don't think either's really disappointed in the result. I don't think the Panthers are really looking back at this one like, damn, they might be out of the minor premiership race now, but the Panthers aren't really here for minor premierships. They're here for premierships, and we know that they'll just come home in the back end of this season. So if you're a Storm fan, you're happy. If you're a Panthers fan, you're not too worried, to be honest. The only thing is the Nathan Cleary injury, but if he's coming back for finals, you hedge your bets. You're going to get a few games there. Lastly, the last thing I wanted to touch on for it, do we think Panthers have the luxury of resting players at this point of the season, especially if you're NRL and Supercoach player? Are these players going to get rested? We'll start with you.
Well, personally, I don't think they will, because I know after Origin they rested Yo for round 20, and there was a lot of chat around the fantasy players being like, because Yo's usually been rested around 19 and played round 20. On top of that, they rested Luai and Edwards, and they kind of already had that round 20 bye. So I think that now they will play him, especially with Cleary out. I don't think they'll win the minor premiership, but I think they'll want to try and get these guys as much football in their legs as they can. And for one reason, I don't think you can rule the Panthers out, just off topic a bit, but it's because I was going back to the Broncos game in the finals. Their comeback was unreal. Then you go back to that Eels game, and their comeback was unreal. I think that this team, it's just they fight till the death, and that's the one thing that we don't see enough in the NRL, I think.
100%, mate. They're definitely the team to beat. You cannot really get lazy around them at any point, because they can really come back to bite you. Callum, mate, are they your tip to win the premiership?
Definitely up there. It'd either be these two teams, in my opinion. Roosters have a strong side, but I just don't see them winning it. But if Panthers are going to win it, in my opinion, I feel like Leota and Fisher-Harris and Yo need to find that combination like they did last year, running up into that final series and grand final. How strong that forward pack was just ridiculous. It was an unfair advantage over any other team that they had. Like, when you have Moses, Fisher-Harris running up the ball like they did in set plays like that, it just sets up Cleary at the back to do anything he wants. It puts the defense. They're absolutely knackered, and just gives Cleary and that spine, that option there to do whatever they want. But really, I think Penrith, a 50-50 between these teams, in my opinion. I can definitely see the Storm doing it. If Hughes keeps controlling his men like this, yeah, definitely.
100%. But I guess that one sort of wraps us up for that Thursday game. Moves us into the next game. Not keen to talk about this one. The Manly Warringah Seagulls defeating my New Zealand Warriors 24-10. I'll start on this one, I guess. Look, I'm not overly disappointed. I mean, at this point of the season, I can't be too hurt. We're copping losses. I think at this point, all I want to do is send Sean Johnson out on a high. This wasn't how we got it, but it's a result that I'm decently happy with. We were right in that game up until that second half. When that rain sort of started to pour, we dropped everything that we could, every ball, every time that we got into attacking opportunity. The Warriors really just didn't execute. Thought Sean Johnson had a really good first half and really, created space. And then the second half, he just, had a really, really poor second half. My apologies. But look, it's a tough one. Manly, I think they're very much a dark horse in this competition. The way that they attack at their own end and their defense in this one was the only big question mark I had on the side. I think they really flexed their premiership muscle in this one. Do you reckon they're a chance, Callum? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I really like how impressive the outside backs was. Like, how deadly they were. Like Ruben Garrick, he was awesome, all going in for tries. Like Jason Saab, Tommy Turbo's finding his way, and the young gun Leo Hapawadi, he was also good. I just Cherry Evans' experience. I definitely think they can run him into the back end of this year for grand final hopes or maybe winning the premiership. I just think DCE is the main man on that side, and that team knows that DCE will run them to a final, and he's calling everything now. So Tommy Turbo's, I think, is just listening under DCE's ear and just ready to bite. And I think big end, Tommy Turbo is going to prove something, and it will be a massive impact in their run home, in my opinion.
100%, mate. I mean, a lot hinges on Tommy Turbo being healthy, but I think the most hinges on just Daly Cherry Evans leading this side around the pack. I think Luke Brooks this season has done a fantastic job in that second fiddle sort of role, but they've just got strike across the board, the Seagulls. I don't know really how you can defend them. When they're on, and you just can't. I thought a couple of weeks ago when we watched the Raiders take them on, I was like, all right, let's see if the Raiders can get them down into that dogfight and see if Manly's forward pack can go with them. But the thing with Manly, and maybe even the Dogs, I think at the moment, they don't actually really want to get into that. Their forward pack maybe isn't as strong on paper, but where they can attack you across the board and just start spreading across their back line, they can really just attack from anywhere. And their strength is in their outside backs and how you stop them. I don't know. Do you have any answers for that one, Will?
Yeah, well, personally, I think that I've got the two dark horse, and I think the only team to actually win the comp that can beat Panthers are the Sea Eagles and the Bulldogs, just because they got so many attacking weapons, and I don't think there is many ways to stop them. The only thing I would say is in the Panthers and the other team's favour is DC is more of a game managing half than someone that cracks the game open. Like you look at Hughes, his running game is unreal, while DC is more of a game manager, which I do think the Sea Eagles need, but I also think that there's many times that you see Cleary saying, all right, if you guys don't want to do it, I'll do it myself. I don't think DC has that X factor. And I think that there'll be a game where Turbo maybe does his hammy, to be honest, or has a bad game, or Garrick, another head knock. And, I think that it's just they're two of that team that's a bit flashy. Like you look at Saab, he's good one week, shit another week. So, yeah, I do think that it starts with stopping their back line, but also neutralising their forward pack.
100%, mate. I think the key to on every team's whiteboard when they come up against the Seagulls is literally just stop Tom Trbojevic. Do not give him space. But it seems to just be easier said than done. He keeps getting it done. The big thing, though, back in 2021 when they had that amazing season, that Turbo Dally M record-breaking season, they also came in the finals. And the teams in finals, they always elevate. I know a lot of people are sort of thinking, everyone's sort of wondering, can each side make it to the top 8? And everyone's sort of hanging on because it's such a close race this year. There's so many teams up until essentially this week that could have still made the top 8. And everyone was hanging on and being like, can my team still make it? A lot of people are sort of sitting here wondering, or does it matter? If they make the top 8, they're just going to get bounced straight away. But as soon as you get into finals, it's a different kettle of fish. So a team like the Dragons, for instance, no one's given them a hope all year. If they make the top 8, I'm not, doubting against the Shane Flanagan coach side to get a win. So when it comes to finals, all these sides that just elevate their game, can the Seagulls elevate theirs, or are they already just peaking a bit too early? And if Tom Trbojevic is contained, do they have the key ingredients to really get a win in finals? It remains to be seen, but definitely a side that I think has all that potential. When it comes to the Warriors, however, very disappointing year for the Warriors, a team that was sort of earmarked on a lot of potential based on last year. They added Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, they added Kurt Capewell, two really good signings into their roster. And they've gone backwards. There've been injuries. There've been a few things that haven't fallen their way. But in the end, it's just been a really disappointing season for the Warriors. Sean Johnson retiring is now all they're focusing on, going out and sending him on a high. They come up in New Zealand this week. They've renamed the stadium to Sean Johnson Stadium to give him that tribute. And then they finish out the season with the Sharkies in round 26 before they have a bye in 27. They're out of the finals contention. Where do they go for next year? Is Tamari Martin their halfback going forward? What do you think, Callum?
He's definitely done a good job, but I think next year Tamari Martin has shown the strike power and the ability to be their halfback. With the absence of Sean Johnson, you saw they went on a bit of a winning streak there, and Magic Round against Penrith to knock them off was outstanding. And the way Tamari Martin did that, he definitely shows enough strike power to definitely hold that 7 position next year. Regarding Warriors next season, if we've been planning ahead for them, just their magic season last year was just how they kept all their players injury free, and how Sean Johnson could control that team. I guess Tamari Mines needs to stand up and show a bit of experience and control that team. Whereas he still seems a bit young, Tamari Martin, and I think he'll be awesome next year for them, and he definitely holds that 7th spot.
Yeah, I think that is the big question mark in their side. I think Tamari has done a fantastic job. He's had that halfback role. But you've seen it at times in the last couple of weeks while Sean has been out with that Tamari Martin and Chanel Harris-Tavita combination. The kicking game hasn't necessarily been there, not just from the goal kicking, but the general play kicking. That's something Sean Johnson is going to be very missed when Sean Johnson leaves this side. But a big thing that wasn't mentioned coming back into this game was the return of Luke Metcalf as well. Been out for essentially since round 4 or 5, I think it was. Might have even been earlier. He was incredible back then, and to see him come back and pick up the goal kicking and play the way he did, it's a combination that they get to work on. They're still relatively young, their halves across the park, and they have a lot to work with there. I think they still have key ingredients to make a run next season, but we have to wait and see there. What do you think, Will? What do the Warriors get up to next season? Where should they be targeting in their signings, do you reckon?
Well, I do think the Warriors will decrease next year. I think Adam Fanua-Blake is a massive loss for them. I do think James Fisher-Harris is a great prop, but I look at the Warriors and it's just AFB's, I think they're 2nd or 3rd leading try scorer, and they're losing Adam for James Fisher-Harris, who is someone that's not really a try scorer. But the one thing I have that the Warriors are in their favour is one of my favourite players, and he wears his heart in his sleeve every single time. He was pretty much, you could see he wasn't the same this year. If Tohu Harris can get his knees right and maybe play 1 or 2 more unreal seasons of footy, I think that he's so important for this Warriors team. I watched him one game against the Titans when you guys got absolutely destroyed. But I just watched it, and he was there in cover defense every single time someone made a break. And I think Tohu is, I'm calling it now, if he gets fit, he's in for a massive season, and he's going to be what makes the Warriors get in the 8 or not.
Mate, I love that call. I think you hit the nail on the head mentioning that Titans game. It's weird. Been in a few, Warriors supporters pages and whatnot. There's a lot of harsh shit that comes out about players. As soon as you lose a game, everyone's calling for players' throats, which I'm sure is across every, team's fan page. Everyone does that. There's always that loud minority of fans who are just, spewing shit for no reason. But the slander that came out about Tohu Harris this season saying he needs to retire, we need to move on, it blew my mind, because he is by far and away the heart and soul of the Warriors. He really epitomizes what the badge stands for. And he's been playing injured and still being that person who comes across in cover and just always trying his heart out. So I think that's been a massive loss as well. I think the big thing about losing Adam is just the mentality and the leadership that James Fisher-Harris will bring. I'm also not sure if it's an upgrade as per se. I think they're maybe on the same caliber of level of players in general, but it's what that team needs in the time. And the Warriors have looked at Adam in these big moments, and that's why he's been such a good try scorer, why he's able to punch out these incredible numbers. What James Fisher-Harris is going to bring in is just that mentality. I think there's probably no forward pack in the NRL I'd want to run at least than running into the teeth of Mitch Barnett, James Fisher-Harris, and a healthy Tohu Harris. I think if I had to take that from the back fence and do a hit up and say that, I'm just dropping the ball. I'm turning around. So I'm hoping there's a bit of something that the Warriors can gain there. But look, that's for next season's discussions. Focusing on this season, it's been a poor one, but let's just try and hope that they can send Sean Johnson out on a high, because he's been such a fantastic player for such a long period of time, inspiring a new generation of footballers, especially in New Zealand, which is a rugby union-dominated country. So I wasn't awfully disappointed in the Warriors' performance in this one. I think second half was really bad, but they're also coming up against a a really good Seagulls side. A fitting way to end the battle as well. Coming into this game, Sean Johnson and Dale Cherry Evans had a split down the middle, equal win-loss record against each other after debuting in the same year in 2011. Out of 18 games, or might have been 19 games, they had won 9 each, and they had that draw earlier in this season. So now DCE picks up the chocolates to finish their little streak after debuting in the season together in 2011, going all the way to that grand final. And it's just a fitting end to the chapter of their careers. But, lads, let's move into the next game. Let's stop chatting about my wires. Next game, we have the Roosters defeating the Parramatta Eels 38-14. Look, Eels have shown a lot of heart as of late. You know, the last few weeks have really put it to teams. They should have beat the Penrith Panthers last week, in my opinion. Coming up against the Roosters fresh off the bye was always going to be a hard ask, and it proved too big for them. The rain didn't help, but again, even with the Roosters' attacking style of play, I thought the rain would have been more of a hindrance to them as well. Is this the sort of performance that the Roosters really needed to sort of put themselves on the level of the Panthers and the Storm? What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I think if you look at a score, they had a better score than the Panthers, and they played them a week later. But I don't think so. I think their backline's too hit and miss. Like, I think you have Manu, Suali'i, Tupu, and Walker and Young, who are all good players, but they either click together or none of them click. Along with their forward pack, I just don't think they have the props or the lock that really just runs the ball up and runs it hard. And I don't rate Brandon Smith as a hooker either. So there's a lot of things. I mean, I think that Gus Crichton combination with Tedesco is forming is really good. And I'd have them as probably my fifth team to win a premiership this year, or like my fifth pick.
Fifth, who are your top four?
Well, I'd have Panthers first, Dogs second, Storm third, Eagles fourth.
Wow, okay, that's a big call. That's a massive, massive call from Will here. What do you think, Callum?
I think that I do get the clicking issue that Will was talking about there with the backline there. They had some. I was watching the NRL 360 episode, and it got me thinking. They were talking about how Sam Walker, Tedesco, and Kiri, three big names there, were struggling for who wants the ball and who wants to set the plays. We see sides like Manly have that game managing half, like they know who's setting the tone, and it's DCE. Whereas this side had some struggles early in the season, but I think they've figured out these issues, and they know that it's going to be the James Tedesco, Sam Walker calling it now, and hopefully they don't get that muddled up, because that was a big issue that I saw through the middle of the season. But the attacking, just Tedesco, Tupou with the experience, Suali's young, he wants to finish off with the premiership. Joey Manu, we know how good he is if he stays injury free, and Dom Young with 3 tries, we know how he loves to get over a try, and just Sam Walker, he's got all the potential for a future Cooper Cronk, in my opinion. He's been under his he was with him with the season under his eyes. So yeah, and I also think the props, Lindsay Smith, Origin. I don't know what Will was talking about with who can't run the ball up hard, but God, Lindsay Collins can run a hard ball. Spencer Lenu as well, if he plays off the bench or starts. Angus Crichton, Connor Watson, we saw how good he was for New South Wales, and he's still been good here. We know how many tackles he can make. Victor Radley, Victor the Inflictor, Tupanua, and the guy who's been at it all season, Terrell May. That forward pack and back line, wow, they can win a premiership, in my opinion.
A bit of divide in the Fantasy Fanatics group here. A bit of two differing opinions. Now, look,
we have it a lot.
Yeah, I love it. No, that's good. You want to have those sort of differing opinions. I personally do think the Roosters can do it. I don't think they've shown enough. I think they've shown too much inconsistency than those sort of top sides have shown. In saying that, I think when every team is at their best, like based on this season, I think the Roosters are the team I'd want to come up against least. I think they've just got too many attacking threats across the board. You know, we mentioned when you're doing your homework or you're doing your game day team sheet, all right, Tom Trbojevic, he's the only thing that, well, maybe not the only thing you note down, but he's bold, in big, bold writing, Tom Trbojevic, stop him, you stop Manly. I don't know what you write down when you verse the Roosters. What you write down, James Tedesco, and then Sam Walker starts doing chip and chases and scoring tries. You write down Sam Walker, and then Angus Crichton's playing the best footy of his life. You write down Angus Crichton, then Dom Young sprinting down the sideline for 3 tries. There's just so many attacking weapons across the board. The big thing for me is their attitude. Now, the thing I wanted to see coming out of this game was in the final, when they already came out and they put a massive score on, how they'd react in the final 20 or so minutes, and if they'd just keep the foot on the throat and, push that home. And once again, a 67th minute try to Sean Russell, and then a 79th minute try to Joey Lussick. Now, they don't do anything but make the score look a little bit prettier for the Eels, but this is a theme that's come and gone for the Roosters in the past few games. I thought coming out of that bye, this was something that they really needed to work on and just, keep that ascendancy going. And, they scored their last try, 57th minute. There's 23 minutes left of the game where they just didn't want to score any more tries. You can say, yeah, the Eels, they started playing better footy. Sure, the Eels were playing better footy, but the Roosters, to me, they just keep taking their foot off the pedal. And when it comes to finals, you cannot do that. We talk about how the Panthers put on that score against the Eels a couple of weeks ago to come back there. The Panthers in the grand final last year. If the Roosters are going to be doing this to the best sides in the competition, it will come back to bite them. So I think they can win a premiership. I think they have all the attacking weapons to do so. I love the mold of Brandon Smith as a hooker, to be honest. I don't know. I think I'm in the minority. I think a lot of people love Brandon Smith as an impact forward or even a starting forward, which I get. The way he runs the ball and everything, he's got all that ability. But I thought in this game, when Connor Watson went off the field, and Brandon Smith just, essentially had to play big minutes in that hooker role. And he did his usual darts from dummy half, good defense. I think he's added a kicking game to his arsenal this year, had a few 40-20s. I really like Brandon Smith at hooker. I thought he was fantastic in this one. But, I've still got my concerns about whether or not the Roosters can go over all the way this year. As for the Eels, it's been a disaster season for them. One of the couple of teams that have sacked their coach. Looking forward to next year into Jason Riles. He's told a few players, I'll be on high alert, you might be out. Essentially he's told some of the coaching staff and the higher-ups as well that there's going to be a clean out there. I'm hearing Regan Campbell-Gillard's on the lookout for, I think the Knights and Dragons are looking interested in Campbell-Gillard. Junior Paulo has been talked about. Mitchell Moses has even been talked about. Ryan Madison. There's seemingly no one safe for the Eels, especially after just losing Blaze to Lungi, which is pretty difficult. Where do you reckon the Eels should be targeting in the signings department, salary cap in question, Will?
I do think that Royce Hunt would be a very, very nice signing for them off contract next year. I know the Tigers are very interested in him, and I think, Royce is just kind of that impact player they need. I know you say Paulo's somewhat that, but I think Royce is the closest thing to a Spencer Leonard that they need. And I think this season they've got a bit unlucky. Like, if you get Royce going along with a Jermaine Hopgood, a Moses, and a Dylan Brown, then I think they're not that bad. I did read something that there was talk about Dylan Brown moving to the 13 full time, which I don't know if it's true or not. It was a couple of weeks ago, but personally, I wouldn't go there. If I was looking to sign someone, I don't think there's really many players out there that you're looking to sign, and I think personally keeping Madison and Mitch Moses is the best thing that the Eels can do.
I think you might be right, mate. Like, it all comes down to who's actually available on the market and if there are better replacements. Now, I think Madison and Lane and Regan Campbell-Gillard, essentially all the Eels players except your Mitch Moses and Clint Gutherson, maybe Will Penasini, I think they've all had really down years. But they're quality players. We know there's a team that made a grand final, 2-3 years ago. It's not that different. The side is not all that different to the team that made the grand final. I think if Jason Riles can come in from a winning formula, he's been involved with the Roosters, been involved with the Storm, he's been around wins. Even as a player, he's been around, winning premierships. He's in that business. If he can come in here and keep this majority same roster and just kick them into shape and get them their attitude back on track, I think this is a dangerous side. I still had the Eels, from the beginning of this year as a team that'd be around that 8th position. So to me, they were still around that top 8 side. Now, it's been a disaster year. I haven't agreed with some of the methods that have happened. I don't agree with the Brad Arthur sacking, especially when you'd already earmarked his young fella, Matt Arthur, as the hooker going forward for your club. And then you sack his dad, you piss off the son, he leaves, and you lose Lace Lungy. It's been a disaster season for the Eels, but I think there's enough ingredients there to really cook something up for next season. So, yeah, look, another disappointing loss. The big one that we talk about now, which we'll get to with the Tigers game, but the Tigers getting a dub puts them on this, I believe, the same wins and losses as the Eels going forward, which means round 27 will be the Eels taking on the Tigers themselves, and the winner of that, barring any wins from here, will decide who gets the wooden spoon. So the Eels, they were 1 win clear, and now they're sweating bullets. So scary stuff to see there. But, like, mates, let's move into the next game. We have the Bulldogs defeating the Dolphins 30-10. Another comprehensive victory from the Bulldogs. I finally tipped them right, which is something I've struggled with all season. Seemingly never getting this team right. I keep doubting them, and when I don't doubt them, they perform poorly. But here they are, putting on another great win against the Dolphins side, who has not been a pushover all season, and they were right up in this game essentially the entire way through until that last 15, 20 minutes, in my opinion, the Dolphins. So, yeah, guys, what do we think of the Bulldogs? I'll start with you, Callum.
Oh, I think the Bulldogs, there's so many finals contenders this year. The finals have evened out a bit this year, in my opinion, and anyone really can win it. But the Bulldogs, I think they're awesome. I think they're a bit like the Storm. They have big names in their side, but I feel like they have a few unsung heroes. I feel like Jacob Carraz, he's going to be looking for a contract upgrade soon, because how much work he's been doing out of there, and I think he's got the most run meters, him or Dylan Edwards, or most tackle breaks or something like that out of their own end. Like, their backs are so good out of their own end, and really help those forwards. And get Sam Hughes, he does a bit of work. He's an impact player, but they just get him out of their own half. And how good their second rowers are. Like, we saw Jacob Preston getting injured, and now he's back again. We see, I put him in my fantasy team for a reason. I think Jacob Preston, his rookie year was really good, and now he's starting to hit his straps now after injury, and I think he could be in the big final season. That their edges and just backs are just electric. That pace with Cherry and Adokar on one side, just so much danger in that side. But guys like Reed Marnie, making a lot of tackles but missing some. They've just got a lot of ticker this side, in my opinion. They've finally figured out Toby Sexton at 7, which earlier in the season I was definitely like, they need to give it to Sexton. There's not much going on there. And Burden, I think, as well, very good at controlling that side. And I talked about the Storm with some unsung forwards. I feel like Josh Curran has definitely been that guy for the Dogs this year, just getting to work. And like, you look at the interchange, it's not too impressive, but the guys there have their impactful 26 to 30 minutes on that bench there, and they're just doing their job at the moment, the Dogs.
100%, mate. Look, you mentioned Jacob Kiraz there and his incredible numbers. I'll read you through what he pulled out in this game. So, of course, the 2 tries, which is, no small feat itself. He had 27 runs for 297 meters. 101 of those were post-contact meters, 2 line breaks, 4 tackle breaks. He is right up there with, like, Brian Toto, and when it comes to work rate from wingers, he is tremendous what he's actually doing, to be putting his body through that week in, week out. He's an absolute monster. But it's really weird. You look across this board, and essentially you've said it, everyone is they're getting the best out of each other. And I think when people looked at the Bulldogs on paper earlier this season, and even through the mid parts, and I know I've been guilty of it, is you sometimes look across the squad and you look at, the names, and you're like, do they match up to everyone else? And in some areas they don't. Josh Curran as a starting front row forward, you're like, does he match up to most other front row forwards? Sam Hughes as a rookie forward, does he match up? But in the end, they're getting the absolute best out of essentially every single player in their squad. And when you're getting the best out of everyone, when everyone's playing for each other, it's just so much better than a team of just superstar individuals that just, sort of playing all right, sort of playing okay. You mentioned Toby Sexton. He should have been the halfback from the beginning, in my opinion. But Serrato, he obviously knows what he was doing. He wanted to give, Sexton maybe a kick up the arse to fight for that spot, or Drew Hutchison the chance to really give him that experience. I'm not sure what was going on there, but it's worked out in the end. The Bulldogs, they're firing on all cylinders heading into finals. And, you look across their squad now, and there's not really anyone I'm sitting here going, they have a bad game ever, realistically. There's no one in this forward pack. I'm like, they're prone to a bad game. And I think that's incredible coaching. And in the end, they've just found their DNA. And this is a side that feels like a Bulldogs side now, to me, in my opinion. It was a bit weird for me with all the signings that they brought in, which fair enough, they were part of a rebuild. But to me, it was just signing all these Panthers players and signing all these big name players. And I'm like, but how are they going to perform? We've seen the Tigers do it respectfully, signing a lot of these really good players in, but without that DNA, can they really push on? The Bulldogs, they've got around that, and they really have that DNA. Now, another thing that was headlined in this game, the foot race between Josh Adokar and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. Mate, Will, I'll pass it over to you. How good was that?
I didn't actually watch that game this week. It was the only game I missed. But, just a quick one. I played this game with a couple of my mates at school, and it's like pretty much you have to choose players from a wheel spin and like you put them in a position. And I have this massive argument because I think Jacob Krause is the best winger in the comp this year by a long shot. And I just think, he's, as Callum was saying, he's kind of that unsung hero. But that's all I had to say. Didn't see
mean, he very much could be. Like, I think this season there have been a lot of great performers in that wing role. I think Brian Toto is probably locked in for like a Dally M Winger of the Year role. Heroes definitely could. I don't know. He spent a bit of time at centre and whatnot, so I don't know how it all works with polling points and whether or not if he gets them at centre, if he gets some points for his games at centre, do they count to him winning Dally M Winger of the Year? I don't know how it'll all work. Zach Lomax has been really good. Players like Kyle Felt and Jack Bostock have been underrated, but Kiraz, what he does, as I said, I think it's right up with Brian Toto at the moment. Not saying he's as good as Brian Toto. Toto's been doing this week in, week out for years. He's the best by a long margin, in my opinion. But Kiraz this season has been extraordinary. And I mentioned that Bulldogs DNA. He just bleeds blue and white, in my opinion, Jacob Kiraz. I think he was excellent. I want to go back to this Hammer Fox thing, so I'm going to pass it over to Callum now. What do you make of the sprint, mate?
I'm a big sprint guy myself. I've had chats to Roger Fabry, the sprints coach of Josh Adokar and Kalen Ponga and stuff like that. But if we put in perspective how fast Hammer ran, it was 40 kilometers an hour. We see guys like Usain Bolt, when he set that world record, it was 44.27 kilometers per hour. So it's absolutely ridiculous there what Hammer has done. I've been following the speed guys for a while, and I think Hammer's definitely been that guy, and he hasn't showed us yet. I think he's just definitely that guy who's quick off the mark and hold it towards the ends. And Adokar's getting old. We saw him with that issue there, and it was impressive to see Hammer to run him down. And I'm very excited, keeping a close eye on if the NRL will put in a 100-meter sprint in the grand final. Like, if I'm backing anyone, it will be Hammer.
Yeah, it's exciting. I've been waiting and asking for this 100-meter sprint for such a long time. I personally do think it should probably be Magic Round, where every team in the competition is already there. Like, you put it on the grand final. How many teams that have missed finals aren't already, out in Bali on their holiday? Are they really going to want to come back for a sprint?
Yeah.
I don't know. Regardless, I want to see it, and I'm happy that we got a bit of a glimpse into it. Adokar, he came in with a bit of an injury on that knee, and he's bulked up a lot as well with Adokar. You think back in his early days, very slim, very fast. He's still got some speed, a lot of it, but he's not as fast as he used to be. He still clocked 37 Ks an hour at a top speed in that run, and Hammer to clock 40. Once again, you mentioned Hammer. He essentially only ever runs as fast as he has to. It always looks that way. I remember a couple of years ago, he picked up a long-range try against the Seagulls, and it just essentially, he had Jason Saab chasing him, and Saab was mowing him down. But Hammer just knew that he was going to get there, and Saab caught him. He fends him off and scores a try. It just seems really weird with Hammer that he only ever runs as fast as he has to. Even in that chase on Adokar where he hits 40 Ks an hour, as you said, 4 clicks off the top speed of the fastest human being of all time, it didn't even seem like he was really in full stretch. It still seemed like he had another gear.
Yeah, I saw article on the NRL, they came out with the top speeds from all the players this year, and Hammer's 40 compares to Adokar, who is in second with 39.1 kilometers per hour. And I think Jason Saab was just below on 38.9. So Hammer's got a slight lead and is my favourite to win the race, in my opinion.
Fox hit a 39 this season.
Yeah, 39. It was early in the season, 39.1.
Wow, I missed that. I knew he I think 2 or 3 years ago, he clocked a 38.75 or something, which was like the highest speed of all time in the NRL. But I didn't realize he'd clocked the 39.
Yeah,
Goes to show
39.
Fox's,
I think it was round 2, maybe.
Crazy. Goes to show he's still got that speed in him. Yeah, I do think Hammer and Saab are probably my two favourites, but you still can't rule out the Fox over a 100-metre sprint. Look, let's move into the Dolphins side of things. It's been a long season for the Dolphins. Started off really hot. It's been a bit of a form slump going in. They've had a really tough draw to end the season. You know, it still keeps going with some tough games to go. They're only one win outside the 8 at the moment, very close to being able to get into the finals for the first time ever in their history. You know, only their second season in the NRL. Can they get it done, Will? Do you reckon they can make a little late rally and make their way back in the finals to finish off the season?
Yeah, well, I was talking to my brother about this morning, and I think the 8's pretty much set. The Dragons got a game on pretty much every team, and they've got the Eels coming up, and the Sharks and the Raiders. So, I mean, they don't have a really easy draw. So, no, I do not think they'll get in the 8. But sorry.
No, you're right, mate.
Yeah, they got a really nice team. The Dolphins, I think, again, a lot of unsung heroes in here, and Herbie's had an unreal season, along with Max Plath out there, and when they're full strength, you know, you got Jeremy Marshall King, and someone who I think is playing unreal is Isaiah Katoa, and I do think losing the Super Coach will hurt him next year. But yeah, to answer your question on short, I don't think the Dolphins will make it the 8.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling in a similar boat to you. But in my opinion, whether or not they do or don't, to me, it's another fantastic and successful.
What a great season.
Another successful year. This is a club in its second season ever, and they're already fighting for a top 8 berth. It's crazy what
they've
they're
done
doing.
better than the Titans, and they've been around for like 15 years.
Mate, they've done better than almost every other Queensland team. I mean, the Cowboys are just one or two wins ahead of them as well. But they're doing better than the Broncos, who are the biggest, most successful club in the NRL, and the Dolphins in their second season are doing better than them. I think it's been a hugely successful season, and I was all for, you know, adding more franchises to the competition. A lot of people were scared of how they were going to go last year. You know, I was one of those people that said, yeah, I think they'll come last year. They fought their way into, I think, 13th to finish the season, which was really successful. And this season, if they don't win another game, I still think they've done a fantastic season. What have you made of the Dolphins this season, Callum?
Yeah, I think they've been very good, especially with two guys that were missed from Queensland. The origin players can play for Australia. It's Tom Gilbert and Tom Flegler. I actually saw Tom Flegler down at Burleigh a couple of weeks back. But, yeah, they just really missed them, honestly. But I do think they have the attack as well. I think Cody Nikorima and Isaiah Katoa is definitely a great halves combination. And they do have those older guys that will probably be departing soon and retiring, like Jesse Bromwich, the Bromwich brothers. Felice Kafusi might have a couple more years, but it's also those guys have been absolutely impactful. And Lemuelu, how he's going, like younger guys coming up through the system to try and get their NRL debuts and like that. I've been studying the ladder because I'm trying to get my Broncos to get back into that 8, and there is a possible way. There is a possible way they can get back in. I feel the top 7 is decided now, I believe, unless the Cowboys lose all their games. They're 2 wins ahead of the Dolphins at 8, but it was bad for the Broncos because St. George won on the weekend, so they're 1 win away from the 8. And I think Broncos, if they're 1 win away and the Dolphins don't win any, they also can slot in. So the Dolphins are in real shambles to make the 8. But I'd really love to see the Dolphins make the 8, even over my own team Broncos. Just what they've done without some key players this year is just, yeah, amazing.
For me, they're essentially my second team. for this season, at least in these early parts. I just want to see new franchises be successful. So at the moment, they're my second team. Now, I'd love to see them sneak in. I also don't think they will, but one can dream, I suppose. At the moment, I do think our top 8 essentially is set. I think, what is it at the moment? Is it Dragons currently in 9th or 8th?
Yeah.
8.
9.
Yeah, so Dragons are up in 8th and Dolphins are in 9th. Yeah, so there's the whole one win separating the two teams. Both teams have finished all their buys. Dragons have an easier draw to come, but they're also a pretty inconsistent football side. Broncos can fight their way in if they win. Knights can fight their way in with a few easy games to come, or easy in quotation marks. There's no such thing as an easy game in the NRL. But I do think the top 8 is essentially set at this point. Regardless, as I said, really great year for the Dolphins. And shout out Cody Nicarima, who you mentioned, playing his 200th NRL game over the weekend as well. So fantastic achievement to notch up 200 games in the NRL, and shout out to him. Lads, let's move in to the next game. The North Queensland Cowboys defeating the Canberra Raiders 42-4. Look, the Cowboys, they really came back from their embarrassing loss to the Broncos the week prior to put on this score. It's exactly what they needed. The thing is, they probably left a few points out there as well. They scored their last try in the 58th minute, and then no points were done for the next 22 minutes of the game. They just sort of not threw in the towel, but caught it there. They took Scott Drinkwater off the field early just to say, look, we've got it wrapped up. We don't want to risk our stars. But what a game from them. Valentine Holmes coming up with 3 integral tries. Had a really poor game last week, matching up against Katoni Staggs, and just got absolutely decimated in that game. So it was really good after the whole contract situation and him announcing his departure to the St. George Illawarra Dragons for 2025 season. And after that poor game, it was really important that he came out and had a good game. And what a game he had, Will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's in my fantasy team as a massive pot of mine. And I just looking here, if you're a gambling man and you took the Valentine Holmes for like over 10 points, you would have been fucking fuming. It would have been like, could have taken the over 24 points and you would be loading it. But, yeah, great game from Valentine. And I have to say, holy shit. Jake Clifford looked like prime Jonathan Thurston. He was running the ball like 197 meters from a halfback is insane. He looked unreal, and yeah. One thing for me is, again, I'm a player of man crushers, and Jason Tamalolo, one of my favorite players. Love watching him, and I do still think Jason has a part to play in this final series if the Cowboys are to make it. I think there's no doubt about it. We all know what Jason can do. He's an unreal player. Probably been, I would say, one of the best locks ever to play this game. And if Jason can get firing with this time off, I think the Cowboys could be a repeat of 2015.
Mate, I back you in there. I don't know how much they got left in them, but games like this, they definitely could. And the one thing that you can't coach is experience. And Jason Tamalolo, he's been there, done that. He's the second most capped Cowboy of all time. He's won their premiership. When he comes back from this injury, he's going to be ripping and tearing. He still has those games in him. He's been limited minutes-wise by Todd Payton this year, but it's not really been of Tamalolo's own regard. It's literally just been Todd Payton doing it to preserve him. And if you're going to preserve him, it's for these moments. It's for a finals push. And you get Tamalolo back out there. You push him into that 50, 55-minute role, and you let him do his best work. He's going to have that layoff. He's going to be fresh and ready to go. I think he's going to be a massive part of their side. To think that they did this without Tamalolo is pretty crazy. That also without Jeremiah Nanai in this one. Chad Townsend was dropped for this one. You mentioned Jake Clifford. When he came through the grades, he was such a freak player coming through the under-20s, and I always had a lot of time and thought he was going to be a fantastic player moving into the grades. Now he's sort of gone the long way around, between sort of an up and down start to his career with the Cowboys, went to the Knights, didn't really kick on there, gone over to England, but to come back now, Chad Townsend departing the club at the end of the season. I do think Jake Clifford is either their halfback or their 5'8", with Dearden being the other man. The big part about both of these players is their running game, and they both thrive on their running game. So I don't know if it necessarily matters what numbers on their back. in this game, as we saw, it really didn't matter. They were able to put on that score, and they can attack you from anywhere. And I think that's a massive part of Jake Clifford's game. And I thought it was really good to see him come in and get the job done, especially when you're dropping your halfback 3 weeks out from finals. It's a massive call to do to shake up the team that much. But Jake Clifford, he came in and had a phenomenal performance. Callum, mate, what'd you make of the Cowboys?
Yeah, I think they're definitely also finals contenders. I think it was the season 2016, was it, when they made it to the grand final against the Storm?
2017.
2017. Yeah, I thought their season was done and dusted. I think they were much of a grand final hopes. And I thought it midway through the season when they went through that drought and maybe last game. But to see here with all their big guns, their origin players sort of finding their straps now, I do believe if they do find themselves in the top 8 and can't make it into the top 4, Todd Payton will rest a lot of these guys and get them ready for final series. But I think definitely someone that's going to be absolutely impactful is, you talk about good fullbacks these days, Reece Walsh, Tommy Turbo, even Kinney, how they're carving up and scoring points for their side. It's definitely going to be Scotty Drinkwater, who's going to be awesome. And he's been a little bit under the radar, but he's usually that consistent guy and does pull out massive games. I know I do have him on my fantasy side just so he could pull out that 80 points. So, yeah, looking for Scotty Drinkwater to go big towards the final series. But just like to point something out in this game, I think the most tackles made in this game was about 37 and 30 from the other side of the ball for the Cowboys, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I think it was just more of an attacking game. And I think they also have the attack, the Cowboys, and also have that forward pack. A couple guys like Sam McIntyre, Harrison Edwards, Thomas McKaylee, or Finifuyaki. Like, do we reckon they could get the Cowboys and help them to a finals win?
Mate, I genuinely think that they have the squad across the park that can do it. If they're playing to their best, which is what we mentioned with the Bulldogs, it's the big thing that's setting the Bulldogs apart, is that everyone is playing to their best. And, you know, maybe it's got Drinker compared to a Connor Tracy. Drinky's the better player. I'm not saying Drinky's had a bad season at all. I thought he was tremendous in this game. He had his fingerprints all over their attack. But when Connor Tracy's consistently playing his best, and that's how the Dogs are doing it all season, they're the better side. But this Cowboys team, if they can, essentially like they were in this game, if they can play their best, like, I don't know who's going to stop them, because you mentioned it comes down to their bench, and even their players under that, they're the people that they bring up through reserve grade, Jackson Purdue and Viliami Vailea, who's playing a big role there now, but isn't exactly their starting center at most weeks. Whenever they're bringing these guys in, they're having massive roles. Finifuyaki, when he starts at second row, is an absolute gun off to the Dolphins next year, and they've picked themselves up a handy one there. So I genuinely think the Cowboys, they can make a very good push. The one thing that's really concerned me about them has always been sort of their defense, and they really can just have a week where they just don't want to be there, which was not even necessarily all of last week against the Broncos. It was essentially just that second half where they just didn't come out of the sheds. I can't really put my finger on why. You know, they had a lot to play for with the Carl Webb medal and whatnot, but they just didn't want to be there. But this one, they really came out and showed their authority, got a comprehensive win over the Raiders, which, you know, in fairness, the Raiders didn't really fire much of a shot. But in the end, you can only play what's in front of you, and the Cowboys did that. They did that to great effect. They're a team I'd be worried about coming into finals, especially if you mentioned that 2017 run. They came in, I believe, 8th that season and made it all the way to the grand final off the back of, a Michael Morgan fantastic season. They did that season without JT, with him being injured for the season, and Michael Morgan just willed them to a grand final appearance against the Storm. Why can't that be like a Scott Drinkwater this season? Why can't he just go on this incredible tear and get them all the way to the grand final? So I'm definitely not ruling them out. I think they've got the squad in them. But let's move over to the Raiders a bit. Look, they're another team that was very much expected to come right down the bottom of the ladder this season with the departure of Jack White, and then who would step up into that. They had Ethan Strange step up, and he's been incredible in that 5/8 role. Moved out into the centres in this one to let Adam Cook play at 5/8. But in my opinion, again, I'd say it's a decent season for the Raiders. Will, what did you make of the Raiders this season?
Yeah, they've been all right. I do think there's been a couple of low seasons, like Matt Tomoko has played nowhere near as good at all this year.
Yeah, I agree.
And going on, I think, they struggled with Jamal Fogarty out for that middle part of the season, but I do think Ethan Strange has a massive future at 5'8". I think he'll go absolutely ham in a couple of years. Going down, I think Josh Papali'i, he's getting old. I do think it is a big loss for them when he retires. But some player they really missed who looked like really their only real threat was Zach Lomax. Sorry, not Zach Lomax, Zach Hosking, who was unreal at the start of the season. And just one guy is probably our favourite player right now, Tommy Starling. Absolute gun. I mean, he's played unreal since coming in that starting spot for Danny Levi. And I think that he holds the key to the Raiders unlocking their full potential next year.
100%, mate. I think there's a lot of things for the Raiders that can fall into place. And in the end, they're a lot closer now without really any key signings coming in. I think they're a lot closer to being a top 8 side than they were at the beginning of this season when everyone thought they were so far away. Nothing's really changed, but players have stepped up. You know, they've had players like Jordan Rapiner just play gritty and tough, and they're looking to maybe he's going to go on one more season with them, or I think he's got an offer over in England for 2 seasons. So hopefully they can hold on to a Rapiner for his experience and his veteran leadership and just the stuff that Rapiner does. You can't coach. It's just will, it's effort, it's determination. He bleeds for that side. Ethan Strange, another season under his belt, he'll be insane. The other thing we got to mention is Chevy Stewart is earmarked through the grades for a long time as their upcoming fullback. He's got a bit of game time this year. He's got a taste of NRL. He's gone back and he's done his stuff, and the Raiders New South Wales Cup team have been fantastic, as has their SG ball side, I believe it is. They're doing really good things in the lower grades. So I think they can really catapult them all up into the grades and work through that. We know their forward pack's good. It's one of the best in the competition. It's been across the sort of backs that they have been not necessarily lacking, but haven't been performing. You mentioned Matt Timoko, one of the best centers on his day, but as you said, he has been quite quiet this season. I think he's had a couple good games at the start, but I really haven't noticed him in games for a long, long time. Sebastian Chris, I thought, has been pretty average this season as well. So they've got a lot to sort of work on there. As we said, Ethan Strange sort of went out into the centres in this one. I think he has a future at centre, but for me, he's still their 5'8" going forward. If it's not him, I think Mitch Henderson from New South Wales Cup / SG Ball should get a shot if they really want to move Strange into the centres. I don't think Adam Cook and Jamal Fogarty are too like for like. I think Adam Cook's a great player, but to me, there's not enough variety with those two in the halves. That's the best thing about Fogarty is he's such a game management halfback that you can have someone like Ethan Strange and just run the ball. So it's interesting to see what they sort of do next season. But the weird thing about this game is, again, I sort of look at it and I go, I don't know which players necessarily underperformed. I just think that the Cowboys came in and just outperformed in every area. But I don't look at the Raiders and go, it was a really poor game from this player and a really poor game from that player. So it is an interesting one. I do think they're missing Zach Hosking. I think at the start of the season, he was phenomenal for them. I'm a massive Zach Hosking fan. The way he goes about his play, I love it. His tackling technique is second to none in the NRL. I love how he just chops players down. So they're missing him, especially his grittiness, his steeliness. But again, for me, a decent overall season for the Raiders. But games like this, it's gonna put a blemish on the rest of the season as a whole, because in the end, you're only as good as your last game. If the Raiders have had a decent season for what they're expected to do, it's not going to be noticed when there are these 42-4 losses. So let's hope they can come back and finish strong for the rest of the season. But yeah, pretty disappointing game from the Raiders in this one. Lads, let's move in to the next game. The Tigers defeating the South Sydney Rabbitohs 18-16. Brings them, they're still in last, but now they're on the equal amount of wins as the Eels. So as we earmarked earlier, that round 27 fixture will decide essentially the wooden spoon. I'm all for it. I'm so proud of the Tigers. I was so close to tipping them in this one. I didn't end up doing it, but I'm happy they won. I don't want the poor club to win another wooden spoon. I think they've improved in a lot of areas. So I'll pass it over to you, Will. How proud are you of this side?
Yeah, we done it. I didn't think we were going to win for a second there. It was getting close. We were up 16-4 at halftime, but yeah, against probably one of the better franchises we've seen before in the history of the NRL. I know they're having an off season, but I do think the West Tigers have found an absolute stud. Goes by the name of Lachlan Galvin.
Oh.
He's having a season, and just one thing for me, it just looked like everyone wanted to be out there. Samuel Lafayette, he's looked really good, and I do believe that next year we get Buller back, and Luai and Taruva, it'll be. I think we'll probably finish 9th again. That's where we seem to finish. But yeah, just really proud of these guys. You know, they just keep fighting every week, and I think that we've seen glimpses of what they can do. Like we saw glimpses a couple of them last year when they destroyed the Cowboys, and then we also saw glimpses when the Cowboys destroyed them. So, but really happy with the West Tigers, and I think they're finding something.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like going forward, to be honest. Obviously, they got those signings coming in, the big ones of Jerome Luai, Sania Taruva, who I think will be really good for the outside backs. You also recently announced the signing of Jarrell Skelton from the Bulldogs lower grades. I think that is a massive signing.
Yeah, maybe Royce Hunt coming in too, which would just leave that Stefano Utakamano spot up for grabs, and I really like that signing too.
100%. They're still out in the market for a few players. Royce Hunt would be really good if they can get the best out of him. I think there's a lot to like. As I mentioned, that Skelton signing. I think the big thing for the Tigers, their biggest problem, maybe not their biggest problem, but when you look at the squad on paper, for me, it's just been their outside backs, especially the wing positions for the club. I think Skelton, he's going to have errors in his game. He's going to have defensive lapses, but the work he's going to do out of his own end is going to be so good for your side. And, Taruva, like-minded, he's already won a premiership, so to get him over, Luai, he's got that experience. I'm really excited for what they've done. You know, they're still coming last at the moment, but for me, this has been a better season for them. Like, I've just seen more heart and more desperation in the side. So I really hope you don't finish with the wooden spoon, and I really hope you build into a decent season next season. You mentioned finishing 9th. You'd take a 9th finish a lot. Everyone used to clown on it, the odd 9th place finish Tigers, but I'd take a bloody 9th over 17th at the moment for the Tigers. So hopefully they can improve to get to that next season. But, mate, Callum, what have you made of the Tigers in this game?
Oh, I don't want to hurt any Tigers supporters, but there's been a common factor that I've been hearing the last couple of years with Tigers. They always come out at the end of the season, there's hope in the club, they've got signings, and they always find their way to sit down the bottom of the ladder. I don't want to hurt any Tigers supporters, but yeah, I do see a bit of hope, but I just hope it's not that repeat as the same. I remember watching that documentary, like, there's hope for the Tigers. They're back at the bottom again. But I really do think there's been those, like, guys filling in at centre that have really done well for them. They're missing those key positions there, and hopefully some more depth with Taruva for the outside backs. I think that's something they struggle with. And Skelton, he's been in the Bulldog system. He's been getting a couple games in, and he was impressive in 2 of them. I think he's scored 2 tries in 1, and also he's been with the likes of that side who just everyone runs the ball out of their own half, and it's just so impressive. I feel like it's a lot relied on the forwards for the Tigers. So moving for Stefano, he's out of there. Who will slot up that position will be interesting. Just a point I have is Lachlan Galvin.
Royce Hunt or not?
I don't think they have yet.
No, we haven't, but it depends if we do.
Yeah, I think Royce Hunt could be a man if you can get the best out of him. But yeah, it all just depends on who you sign.
Lachlan Galvin and Jerome Luai, like, what happens with that situation? In my opinion, I think it's an off season where you maybe teach the young buck how to control the side at halfback, and he could look forward to maybe be that long-term halfback like DCE has been for Manly. What do you boys think?
I'll let you answer first, Will.
I think that Luai proved himself at 7, that they'll just keep Galvin at 6 and go Luai to 7. I think Galvin's got a really nice offloading game along with a really good running game. And, yeah, I think that's really nice for him. I actually do like the fact that we're losing Isaiah Papali'i. Just hasn't really hit his straps since coming from the Eels. And I think Alex Seyfarth is someone I rate really, really highly. He got mongrel about him. He loves it. But yeah, Alex Twall. He's been one of my favourite players for as long as I could remember. And if he fills in our prop position, I think we'd be more than fine. Probably the player that misses the least amount of tackles in the comp, and he wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah, there's a few things there. I think with the Galvin situation, I would have been for him to be a halfback. I think he definitely has those skills. The way he goes eyes up footy, I think there's no one else like him, maybe just Sam Walker in the competition, who just plays what they see. It's not so much structured, kick the corner on fifth sec. It's not play to a game plan, but it's play what you see in front of him. And for him to be doing that at 18, 19 years old is actually ridiculous. Like, if you guys play footy, having a half that can get you around the park, but just, identify that sort of stuff and call the shots, it's insane. It's not just what you see on the screen. If you've never played the game, to be out there and have that player who's not only sitting there looking at the squad, looking at the team and analysing defence, but he's then looking at his players and organising, calling you this, calling you that. And then to be doing it at his age and firing shots, I definitely think he has the potential to be a halfback. I'm not sure if he, at the moment, has like a fantastic kicking game. I don't think he's an Adam Reynolds or Jamal Fogarty level kicker. But realistically, you don't fully need that at his young age, and he can develop that. But the big thing for me, when they signed Luai, I was worried about that. You've just gone and signed one of the best 5'8", but you've brought in this young gun, one of the best teenage players, rookie seasons I've ever seen in my life at 5'8". And then would that clash? I think seeing Luai fill in at halfback for Nathan Cleary this season has really put my mind to bed about that. I think Luai can lead the team around at halfback and leave Galvin to just keep doing his game at 5'8". But it's going to be an interesting one to see next season. I think they definitely improve under that. I think if they get Royce Hunt, that's going to be a great player for them. I am also a massive fan of Alex Twall. It's not just the fact that he doesn't miss tackles, but he gets through so much work in attack. Like, he does still run 120 odd meters, 130 meters a game. He can play long minutes. He's fit. I'm a massive Alex Twall guy. If you end up playing Twall as your starting prop and then just bring Royce Hunt off the bench for 30, 40 minutes a game and impact, I think there's a lot there. So I like what the Tigers are building. I think there's a lot to look forward to for them. But most importantly, just getting that win over the Rabbitohs in this one, it's so important for their season. And it really sets up, as I said, that round 27 clash. It could be one of the most watched clashes this year. I'm going to be so keen to find out who wins that one. And look, I have no problems with the Eels, but I will be barracking for the Tigers to get that one done. Mate, boys, let's move over to the Rabbitohs in this one. We mentioned with the Eels essentially that disaster seasons. The Rabbitohs are part of that mould in a disaster season. They've showed a bit of form in the back end. I think Ben Hornby's done a fantastic job as the interim coach, stepping in there. Obviously, moves back down into the assistant coach role with Wayne Bennett coming next season, which, you can't be mad at that as Ben Hornby, because anybody gets replaced by the master coach. But he's done a great job. So close to winning this one too. Went right down to the final play. A forward pass from Cameron Murray, ruling the Rabbitohs out of a win. It's fair enough. It was forward. They also might have got away with another forward one in the lead-up play to that set. But, what an exciting finish to the game. I think Rabbitohs, look, they've still got a lot to like for next season. Players coming back. It's not just the Latrell stuff and injury and being in the media and all that crap. It's Lachlan Ilias breaking his leg and missing the season. It's Campbell Graham not playing a single game with that sternum injury all season. It's Jai Arrow getting injured. They're playing with a lot of injuries, and they're playing hardy at the moment. I can't be too disappointed in them. It's probably a game they should have won, but in the end, when the Tigers turn out and the Tigers Campbelltown faithful turn up in droves to support their team, and they're such a vocal fan base, I mean, it's hard to get over a team when that happens. So I don't hold it against the Rabbitohs for this one. To me, I can't really be too disappointed in their season as of late. All that disaster, it's gone and happened. At the moment, I'm just in that positive mindset for Rabbitohs and just look forward to the things you can for next season. And there is a lot to look forward to, but I guess maybe it can be seen as a disappointing loss in this one. What did we make of the Rabbitohs in the game?
I definitely agree with you there with like the injuries and the upsets. They've been in the media a lot, especially you saw they had that pressure where they said they could go on a run and they could make the finals and they didn't exceed expectations, but it came with injuries and suspensions to Cameron Murray and missing Campbell Graham with that sternum injury, and then coaches with Ben Hornbury coming in. Yeah, it's just. But it's also, I think it's opened up for next season, in my opinion. We see Jai Gray, he's been there, but I think a massive guy that goes under the radar bit is Tallis Duncan. I think he's starting to play the 80 minutes. We said, when is he going to get that 80-minute role? Definitely a big guy to talk about in fantasy early in the season. When he gets that 80-minute role, how well will he do? And he has done it, and he has got through his work, and I think he can really go big next year, and hopefully they can get that controlling halfback, that game managing half, that Lachlan Ilias usually is at 7, and Jack White can play his role at centres, and Cody Walker can maybe have one more season before he might say, oh, it's time to move on. So I think it's all marbles in the pot next year for the Rabbitohs. It's disappointing Damien Cook moving on, but I definitely think whoever will take that position has a big role to fill in the Rabbitohs making the finals.
Yeah, well, that man you'd presume is Peter Mamouzelos. How do you see him fitting into that role, Will?
Yeah, we've seen some all right signs from Peter Mamouzelos. Nowhere near as good as Damien Cook, but yeah, I think fantasy-wise, Peter Mamouzelos will be a starting hooker that you'll have to start with. But yeah, I think he'll do well, and he'll very good player, and he will just get better and better as a player, and yeah, should do well. Could even be maybe Havili at hooker, or do you reckon it's Mamouzelos locked in?
No, I think it has to be Mamouzelos, to be honest. I think he's done his time. He's 24 years old. He's my age. He's actually not as young. He's just been part of their grades for so long, and obviously been told you have a future here. You will be our hooker, and he's just bid his time, waited his time, and he's really got to that stage. If he's not starting hooker, he leaves. I think Saliva Havili could probably be on that bench and give him a spell in that hooking role, and still play his role through the middle. He's also another man who's been missed this year through injury, so Saliva Havili. So there's definitely options there. They've also got a few signings that they announced today. Jerome Burns, Lachlan Hubner, and Max McCarthy all heading to the club next season. More depth signings. A few players have been killing it in the reserve grade and lower grades, and Hubner from the Dolphins. So good signings to bring in. Ewan Aitken comes across from the Dolphins. I think that's a fantastic signing for them. Obviously, following Wayne Bennett, who's got the best out of him at the Dolphins. I think he slots seamlessly into that second row role and moves Jai Arrow back into the middle forwards, which is what's going to be needed, especially with Tom Burgess departing the club at the end of the season. So they've definitely got it in them. You mentioned Cody Walker, and whether or not he plays on another year. I think he probably has one more, and then, yeah, as you said, sort of passes on that wisdom and passes the torch on beyond then. Who that goes to, not really sure, but I think there's a lot to be excited about. Jai Gray being one of those. God, ever since he's been at fullback, he has just been an absolute revelation in a pretty dark season for the Rabbitohs. He's so good to watch. I heard him in Supercoach as my second 5'8". I'll tell you what, he's damn near close to my starting 5'8" at the moment. He's so good. What have you made of Jai Gray? And do we think there's a chance that we move Latrell Mitchell back into the centres to keep Jai Gray at fullback? Will, what do you reckon?
I think Latrell has definitely proved himself a fullback, just with at centre, with see what he did in Origin and that, and yeah, we all know he's a really, really good player. So I could see it happen, and yeah, Jai Gray has been killing it, but I think the reason that Latrell would get moved there is because he's a little bit of a lazy fullback, and it just makes him a little bit more involved in that. So yeah, I definitely could see it happening. Just depends how Jai Gray starts the season. Could maybe even see Jai Gray to 7, Jack White to the centres, depending on what goes on.
Yeah, there's a few different ways they can look at it. I think the big thing at the moment, everybody says, no, you can't move Latrell from fullback. And in a way, I agree. Like, he's a fantastic fullback, but center's not a slouch of a position anymore. Center's become such an important position in the modern game, especially with the introduction of roaming centers. If Latrell is going to be a center, there's nothing stopping him from roaming and jumping in attacking sets and bringing his fantastic passing game out there. So, look, if it means getting Jai Gray in the starting 13 week in, week out, I actually like the move because I think Jai Gray has just been so good for the Bunnies this season. And yeah, as I said, a real shining light for them. But look, as we said, disappointing year for the Rabbitohs, disappointing result against the Tigers. But in the end, I'm more focused on next season for them. And I'm just happy to see the Tigers get a great win in front of their home faithful. So massive game there. And yeah, one I really enjoyed. Lads, moves us into the second last game of the round. The St. George Illawarra Dragons taking down the Gold Coast Titans 32-16. Look, I'm going to pass this one straight to you, Callum. What do you think of the game?
I thought it was a Titans special. First touch from Keanu Kinney. Oh, wow. He's something special. I think it was 350 or just below that meters run. Is absolute ridiculous. He had an absolute freak game, 2 line breaks, and I just thought it was going to be an absolute demolition. But it was Ben Hunt that sort of steered the ship for St. George, and I think that he will be that guy if they do make the finals. We know Ben Hunt has gone in that 2015. You never know. Ben Hunt might go on an absolute villain arc, absolute hunting wins into the final series and could get his revenge on 2015. So you never know. They've got guys like Tyrell Sloan. We know he can do what he can do. He's an attacking guy. Zach Lomax as well. The Origin series has put him under a high ball. If Jack DeBellin can hit some straps, we know how good he is. Molo runs the ball really hard. Leilua as well. Sewer, absolute Origin. He can play Origin and represented football. Tom Eisenhuth as well. He's been very under the radar this year and just been a very good lock there for them. And also it's sort of like a Bulldogs bench, sort of just guys doing their role, like the 2 Cashman brothers. I think Laurie's on there, and also Jack Bird played at 17, coming back from injury. So yeah, see what role Jack Bird plays coming back into the side. It'll be interesting what he did there. I think he played nearly a full game at 5'8", so it'll be very interesting what happens there. But I definitely think that Mr. Guy, Jacob Little, how good's he? He's been Will's main man. How could I forget him? He's glorious number 9 who's done bits for his fantasy side. So I think that side's good enough to make week 2 and push through the semifinals or prelims and make it out. So yeah, definitely think it's an even playing field for this final series.
I definitely think they have that potential. Like, as I said, I'm never going to doubt a Shane Flanagan coach side, and I really think like he's getting the best out of these sides. Maybe not on a regular basis like Cameron Serrato is for the Bulldogs, but when he gets the best out of this side, they go toe-to-toe with anyone. They beat the Melbourne Storm, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. They can do it. It does hinge on a lot of Ben Hunt playing his best footy, because when we know he's at his best, he's one of the best players in our competition. But they do have threats across the board. Look, another one I wanted to touch on in the game, Christian Tuipulotu. Since they brought him onto the wing, I think he's been so good for them. 270 meters he ran for. Made my team of the week over on the Instagram on the bench. I thought he was so good. I love how he just gets through his work and he's so consistent in what he does. You mentioned Lomax. He's been so good all season. Jaden Sewer in this one, marking up against David Fafita, both Queensland Origin teammates. I thought he just took it to him. He really just brought that aggression and just tried to keep Fafita to an absolute minimum in his attacking threat. Loved seeing him get up and show that aggression, Jaden Sewer. Someone I really liked coming into this season for a super coach perspective and just to have a career best year. And I genuinely think if it's not his best season in the NRL Sewer, it's right up there with his best. But Jacob Little was the star of the show, in my opinion, in this game. But I'll let you have a little bit of a talk about him, Will.
Yeah, round 12, brought in Jacob Little. Just you see, Philly Mano Brown came off the bench, or like he was off completely gone, playing 80 minutes. And I've been in love with this bloke ever since. I think that moustache on him, it just said it all. But he is an unreal footy player. Tackles his heart out. Runs about, I think he ran about 120 metres. He's quick. He's elusive. Ducks on the tackles. He's kind of like a quicker version of Brandon Smith. You know, when he wants to tackle, he tackles. And I don't understand what the Dragons are doing. Personally, I think Jacob Little's a better hooker than Damien Cook right now. Only reason I could see this working is if Little goes to 13, Cook goes to 9. But otherwise, I don't see what the use of having both two premium hookers at 9 is. Wow, what do you think there?
It is a really interesting one because, you know, on face value, Damien Cook, absolutely great signing. And I think he's going to bring a lot of, like, even just beyond his normal, you know, field play, it's the experience and the leadership and everything that he's going to bring to the Dragons. I think he's a good signing, but it is a really interesting one because Jacob Little is an 80-minute hooker, and I don't want to be stopping him from doing that. The thing with Jacob Little is, for a long time, he was one of the most highly touted hookers coming through the grades, and he came in and he copped some of the worst injury luck I've ever seen, and essentially 2 or 3 ACL injuries in his first couple seasons. He's come back and he's finally finding that consistent play and, you know, touch wood, getting a bit of consistent footy with no injuries.
He's unreal.
And he's unreal. He is so good. It's not just, he is one of the quickest hookers I've ever seen. I remember him for the Tigers. He scooped up a kick on the wing. I don't know why he was out there, probably making a cover tackle because he's a gun. Scooped up a grubber kick, picked it up and ran the length of the field as a hooker. They could not track him down. He's got so much pace in that.
Either. I saw one thing was they made a break down the right edge. It was Luciano Leilua. Little was in support the whole time.
Yeah. And it's not just his pace, the way he can read the ruck, the way it's not just his pace that's making these chances. It's as soon as he sees a marker being lazy, as soon as he sees someone too deep or too wide, or they bite on a dummy, he's through that gap. And that's just game sense. That's just eyes up footy. He knows how to play the game. As I said, I do think bringing Damien Cook to the side is really good. I think Cook's had a really good season, at least from the mid part to the back end. I think Cook's had a really good end to the season. I think the Bunnies are sort of regretting letting him go. I know, you know, salary cap plays a big part in that. And I do think he's a good signing for the Dragons, but it is going to be very interesting in seeing how they sort of balance that because, yeah, Jacob Little, for me, he's been so good. A lot of other players you mentioned. Jack DeBellin, he got sent to the sin bin in this one for a pretty lazy sin bin, in my opinion. I don't think it should have been a sin bin. A late high-contact hit on Kieran Foran, allegedly. I don't think it was late, and I don't even think it was high. But he got 10 minutes for that. But even with that 10 minutes in the sin bin, and only playing his 55 in this one, 16 runs, 167 metres from DeBellin, and the old 28 tackles. Jacob Little as well, by the way. He mentioned he ran for 114 metres. He had 52 tackles as well. That is insane stuff from a hooker. So, yeah, I wanted to give massive shout-outs to them. And another one that you mentioned pretty quickly down there, Callum, was the Catchman boys on the bench. I think, you know, they've had big raps on the Twins, the Catchman twins coming through the grades. And they're still quite, you know, slim in their frames for essentially second row or middle forwards that they're playing at the moment. Definitely can, you know, fill themselves out in their body a bit more, but they're still young. There's so much potential in them, and I'm seeing that come. Toby, probably the more talented of the two from what I've heard, had another great game in this one. Look at this numbers from them too, by the way. Both, as I said, identical twins. We had 8 runs from each of them for 97 and 100 metres. So essentially identical numbers from the two identical twins. The only thing that separated them was Toby got himself a nice little try as well. 29 tackles, 0 missed from Ryan Catchman, and 24 tackles, 1 missed from Toby off the bench. So, yeah, I've really liked what they've been doing. Blake Laurie, he's had a down season, but I think he's coming back into form. And Jack Bird, he was given permission to look for rival clubs and explore his options. News coming out today that he's pretty committed to the Dragons going forward. I don't know what role. He's obviously filling in at 5/8 at the moment with Kyle Flanagan out. And I think he can do that well. You know, we saw him do that in his rookie season for the Sharks, but where he sort of fits into their mold, I'm not sure. All I know is I really like Jack Bird as a player, and I think getting him into your side is really good. Lads, let's move over to the Titans. You mentioned Keanu Keeney, 344 meters for him. Started with literally his first touch of the ball, the Titans' first touch of the ball as a club, and he makes that break and sets up a try. You know, it's been the age-old question for seasons past and all throughout this season. What do they do with Campbell, Keeney, and Brimson? For me, Keeney is, you know, at the moment, and that's maybe just because we've seen more of Campbell and Brimson, for me, Keeney's the worst player of the three, but to me, I think he's the most important of the three for the Titans to keep. I think him at fullback is the exact type of player that they need at fullback. The amount of work he gets through for his frame, his speed, his creativity, I think he's so important to that Titans team. And yeah, even in games when they're not really fighting, he's fighting to the death. What have you thought about Keanu Keeney, Callum?
Yeah, I've been following him closely on fantasy, trying to pick him up. When do I get him in? Just keeps rising in cash, and he's been amazing. I feel like he is that suit for the Titans at fullback. We know that Campbell is dangerous there as well, and same as Brimson. But I just feel like Kenny, he shows a bit more benefit all round across the park with the run meters. And I feel like his kick returns are very electric in how he runs it. He's sort of got that Reece Walsh about him. When he gets his hand on the ball, what's he going to do now? But I feel like it is that hot topic there. What do they do with Campbell, Brimson, and Keeney over this offseason? I'm saying stick with Keeney. He's been very impressive, and especially how well Campbell's been doing at 6. We know he runs the ball and how well he can do that. So I think that's where he can chime in and can have those two. But it's going to be very interesting as Brimson, I think, did struggle at centre early on in the season. But you've also got guys, I think Philip Sami run for 200-plus metres. So I feel like it's their outside backs are there for the Titans for next year. It's just going to see what they can do with their backs now, and also Kieran Foran with him departing whenever he can. We don't know what happens with next year. We do with the Union boys coming in is very interesting what happens there at 7 and what they do with Kieran Foran, but also Tino coming back at that 13. We know Chris Randall and guys like Keenan Palacia, Josh Palui, Isaac Liu, who's been playing good roles for the Titans, but it just hasn't worked out every single game, and this wasn't one of them. It was mostly a back-dominated one, and if they can get their forwards that led, I can see them as a top 8 side, especially with David Feeder, just that edge and backs, just so aggressive and just so deadly, so lethal. I think it's one of the most lethal backlines that in the competition, if they can get it right with those 3 combinations. So yeah.
Mate, I agree with everything you said there. Again, you look at their side in this one, I don't even think they were that poor. I can't really single out individuals that were poor. I think the Dragons were just a far superior side. Even that Jaden Campbell try off the kick, I don't think that was a try. With the new rule interpretations, if you drop the ball, you have to deliberately be playing at it. For me, he just happened to drop it on his foot and it was a try. He played to the whistle, and fair enough, good on him for that. But you know, it could have been an even more comprehensive scoreline for the Dragons, and that just shows how good they are. The Titans, they do have a lot to look forward to, as you said, bringing their captain and their spiritual leader, Tino Fa'asuamaleaui, back into the side. You know, the players that they still have, what they do with Brimson next year, you know, there's still that to come for. I'm happy with him playing off the bench for the rest of this season. While they figure that out, give him game time, coming back from injury, and be that super sub. But in the end, you've signed him for so long on big money. We know he's a superstar. You can't play him off the bench forever. So they are going to have to figure that out. Will, what do you reckon they're actually going to do with those 3 players?
Oh, I'm not sure. I do think Jaden Campbell will have to stay at 5'8".
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just played really well there. And I do think AJ Brimson's injury cloud is it's too much for me personally. And, I know personally Kieran Foran's playing some very, very good football. So I don't think he'll be dropped from 7. So I think it'll be Brimson, just his 18th man. And it's pretty much, I think his time at the Titans are pretty much gone to an end. And then it'll be, Yeah, it'll be Keeney at 1 and Campbell stay at 6.
Well, they have signed Brimson for till
27, is it? It's a long term.
think-
Let me find that
yeah.
Brimson contract.
Maybe Carter Gordon will come in at 7.
That's
And,
another interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, Brimson signed to the end of 2030, by the way.
Yeah, something ridiculous. Yeah.
So maybe he'll become a centre. But I do think with Carter Gordon also coming in there, who's a very good player for the Wallabies, went to our school along with Jack Howarth and Xavier Savage.
Dan
I
Gagai.
do think, yeah, Dan Gagai. I do think that Carter will, he'll have to have a spot in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's another one. I mean, look, obviously, you had a few, legends come through your school, but they don't really compare to the man, the myth, the legend that is Alan Tongue from Farah, my old high school. So shout out Alan Tongue. There's been a few others. Tom Leroy Lars. Do you say who to Alan Tongue? How dare you? That is a Raiders legend. How dare you?
Who?
Oh, no, I'm not having Alan Tongue slander on this podcast. But no, the Titans, they do have a lot to look forward to. I'm no closer to the answer than you guys are about this Brimson thing. I don't think he's going to want to be a centre for the rest of his life, but maybe he's just going to be all. For me, he bleeds the Titans as well, which is the big thing. And I think players like him, you want at your clubs. That Sean Johnson for the Warriors turned down all these other contracts to sign for half the amount of money just to return to the Warriors, because when you love the club that much, then you just play better for them. And I think Brimson is that way for the Titans. So maybe he will just want to be a centre and he's just going to be there and happy to win no matter what. But in saying that, are you dropping Brian Kelly? Are you dropping Philip Sammy? Yeah. Philip Sammy ran for 255 metres in this game. Like, what are you doing with it? So, I don't know. It's an interesting one. We'll have to see what Desi Hasler does with the team next season. But, they still have other players like Chris Randall. I've loved the signing of him. That trade deal that they did of Greg Marju to Chris Randall with the Knights a couple of seasons ago. He's turned himself into a bit of a Mr. Fixer, whether he's playing hooker, second row, halfback at stages this year. And in the lock forward, I think Chris Randall's been good. So, disappointing year for the Titans and a disappointing result in this game. But again, a lot to look forward to. And I'm sure they'll still have some really exciting footy left in them before they sort of finish up this season. Lads, moves us into the last game of the round. Let's wrap up this podcast in a big way. The Sharkies defeating the Knights 19-18. Not without a bit of controversy. This one going to extra time, and we had 2 field goals disallowed. Now, I'll speak on them before I pass them off, but I'm not sure how I like this rule. To me, what is it like? It's just blockers. You can't have blockers. But to me, they're not just blockers that are standing in front of the play of the ball to stop players getting there. They're decoy runners. They're sitting behind the play of the ball when the play of the ball is happening. They're running up with hands up. If the Sharks wanted to attack the line instead of kick a field goal, they're genuine options at receiving the footy. And then obviously that's never what their plan is. And they go out the back and they kick a field goal. Same thing happens for the Knights. Actually, the Knights did it first and then had it denied. But to me, I'm not really for it. I can get it if you've just got 2 players that just stand there and sort of block players from getting to you when the play of the ball happens. But if you are actually sending players that start behind the play of the ball, they run up with their hands up as if they're a receiving option, and then you play out the back to your field goal kicker and they kick the field goal, I've got nothing wrong with it. Look, the Knights, is it robbed? I don't know. They got their field goal denied for it, and then the Sharks had it happen and they got their field goal denied for it. Where do you guys stand on it? I'll start with you, Will.
At least it was consistent. That's the only thing
Yeah,
I
at
can
least it's
say.
consistent.
But I'm going to first say, you say Wishart is a gun, but so is Daniel Atkinson. Holy.
Oh, my. I'll be talking about him. Oh, yeah, I'm glad we're on the Daniel Atkinson train here.
Yeah, he is one really good player. But, yeah, so talking about the field goals, I agree with you. Ponga's one should have been allowed. I don't know why they went to Phoenix Crosland for the second one after Ponga absolutely killed that last one. He middled it, everything he had. But, yeah, I do think that, I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, that's it, mate.
He made the field goal. It was an acceptable field goal. But, yeah, at least the Sharks got it. And I do think that the reason the Knights didn't win this game is they need to find something in their halves. Just not giving the Ponga the ball. 93 run meters for Ponga.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Probably
a really
the best
interesting
player in
one.
the league at fullback, like when he wants to be the most influential.
Well, 100%, mate. He's the reigning Dally M winner, despite the fact that he stole the award from Sean Johnson. But no, it is. I agree. On the field goal front, I don't really like the rule. At least they're consistent, which is all we can ask for. They did give the Sharkies the same treatment when Atkinson kicked the first field goal and had that taken back. So at least there's consistency there. In my opinion, it still should have been the Knights kicking that field goal and winning the game, calling it there. But as we said, we just asked for consistency, and at least they had that. So I can't be too hypercritical. On the front of the Knights halves, I'm genuinely baffled with it. I really don't know what the go is. For me, Will Price should be their 5'8". I think, you can say all the stuff, and he wasn't ready for first grade, wasn't ready for the NRL, and then it took him a long time to blood him. But when they did bring him in, they won like 2 out of 3 games of him playing in the side, and then they dropped him. And I think he brings that dynamic running game that they need from a 5'8". And then you can have someone like a very controlled, maybe too controlled in my opinion, in Cogger and Jackson Hastings at halfback. But at least you can free up the ball with Will Price, and you can get the ball out to Kalen Ponga and free him up into space. But their halves is something that's really struggled with them all season, and you can't, even if this team is to make finals with their soft draw to finish, you're not going anywhere if your halves aren't firing. And I don't think the Knights know their halves. Phoenix Crossland was an absolute gun coming through the younger grades, Australian schoolboys and whatnot, but they've turned him into a utility or a hooker. And then to just expect him without any training at halfback for 2 or 3 years to go, guess what, mate? You're our starting halfback now. Like, you've got Cogger, you've got Hastings, whether or not they're playing their best footy. They've trained there the entire season. Play one of them. Why is Cogger coming off the bench when Phoenix Crossland is already a utility? Cogger can play one position, which is halfback or I guess 5'8". He's not really a utility. So I don't know. The Knights are a really confusing team, but to me, they should have won this one with that field goal. What were your takes on that, Callum?
I'll first talk about the issue about the halves. I was very vocal about it early on the season on our podcast, talking about Jack Cogger being our 7 and being the Knights 7, and then seeing Hastings doing well in the position and then them sacking him. It's just, now I've just come to the conclusion is I think it was worse off for the Knights to sign Cogger, in my opinion. Just leave him at Penrith and let him fight it out there. I just don't – it might happen with the Cook situation with Little over there, but I think Cogger should have been the 7 all year round. I just think he showed good signs for Penrith last year when Cleary was out, and also earlier in the preseason. He was able to play well, and I think his kicking game is very much superior to guys like Phoenix Crossland. I'm very baffled when I saw him at halfback. But I think Tyson Gamble has been well, but I just don't see him as that classy 6 as I see as Will Price. I think he was very good in his debut and has that potential for up and coming future 6. But overall on the Knights sort of ball, I think their season is sort of like the Eels. They've just got those guys there, and they paid too much on salary cap, because I think the Saifidi brothers are on something absolutely ridiculous, and they just we know Ponga's on ridiculous, but I see the reasoning why the money, like Will talked about man crush, like an absolute man crush on Kalen Ponga and how much I love him, and I think Fletcher Sharp and Armstrong was very impressive, and I think they can find ways into that starting side. They've shown a lot more. Armstrong showed a lot more for me. You could maybe put him at 6 instead of Gamble. Like the way he played at Magic Round was outstanding. I can see him as a 5'8" and a ball player with Ponga. I think that could be that combination there could be absolute goal. It's just how they unlock Ponga and who's going to do it. And I think definitely Hastings a guy to play the ball to Ponga. It's just who's going to be that attacking man with Ponga. So yeah.
Well, Armstrong are off to England at the end of the season, unfortunately, signing
Yeah.
with the Lee Leopards. So I don't see a world where they put him back in, which is a shame. I thought, he was a gun this year, and I really liked him as well coming through the grades. He's gone the hard way to get there, and he's been really good. Fletcher Sharp, you mentioned, someone to be really excited boy. He's a Cessnock boy, so just around the corner from where I'm living at the moment. He's someone I was really excited through for a long time coming through the grades, and to see him grab it with both arms this season has been amazing, especially on the wing. To me, I just saw Fletcher Sharp as a out-and-out fullback, and he still is. His best position is still definitely fullback in my opinion. But to see him make a fist of the wing and score 4 tries less than a week ago, it really solves that problem for them, and it means he gets into the side regardless. In terms of their halves, I don't really know what the go is. I think I'm in the boat with you that maybe signing Cogger was a mistake for them because they haven't come to any answer. And if they just had Hastings, at least they don't just fuck around with it. And I don't know. It's a really confusing one. I mentioned Mitch Henderson as a young gun that's coming through the Raiders system. He was a Knights junior, originally signing with the Knights, and he's playing in their lower grades as well. And now Mitch has absolutely gone on to lead the Raiders in the knock-on effect New South Wales Cup. To I think Raiders are second on the ladder, and he's playing 5/8 and halfback. They would love to have a young player like him come back in the side and really pressure, because that's the other thing. Do they have those younger players really pressuring? Feels like me that they have these veterans that they're not really happy with in Cogger and Hastings, that they're only pressuring each other because they're the only options that they have. So, I don't really know what the best thing is for the Knights. I think last season was a bit of an enigma for them because it wasn't necessarily the Knights team was playing amazing footy. It was Kalen Ponga was absolutely unbelievable, and they were winning games off the back of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how far they can go in this one. But whether or not they were the better team in this one, I think they probably deserve to kick that first field goal and win. But lads, you've mentioned a young man by the name of Daniel Atkinson a little bit earlier. What an absolute gun he has turned out to be for the Sharkies. He made his debut for the Storm a couple seasons ago. He's been around the joint, fluctuating in and out of first grade, halfback, 5/8, fullback, wing, wherever he can, they just play him, and he just turns up in force. For the Sharkies to be winning this one with no Hines and no Trindle, once again, Cam McInnes / Blake Brayley playing halfback and just being a link man in the middle, and Daniel Atkinson, essentially a rookie, to be leading this team to wins like this and coming up with the clutch plays, kicking the field goal to win the game. But not just that, he scored a fantastic solo try to start the game, and he set up the try for the second try of the game. He's an absolute freak of a player. Well, you mentioned him first. What have you been liking about Daniel Atkinson?
Just his willingness to take on the game. Like, if you were to watch him not knowing footy, and you'd think he's a 15-year veteran, not a 5 or 10 game player. Like, I just think he's got so much confidence, and it just looks like he barks orders to that Sharks team, which I really like. And it's not to mention, like, his well-rounded player. Like, the thing that I think Wishart misses is his kicking game. But I feel like Atkinson both has a kicking game off the tee and like in play kicking, while also having a running game and a defending game too, which is what I really like about him.
100%, mate. I think he's been absolutely unreal for them. It is going to be a really big conundrum for what they do with their players returning. Obviously, when Braden Trindle comes back, assumedly next week, he probably slots back into that halfback role, and they can move their, Cam McInnes and Blake Brayley back to their regular roles, and you run Trindle and Atkinson. The question really comes when they hit finals. Now, it's either round 27 or finals week 1, where Nico Hines is due back. Callum, I'll pass the question to you. What are they doing in the halves? Is it back to Trindle and Hines at halfback and 5/8? Is it Trindle and you just leave Trindle and Atkinson there because they've been playing footy heading into finals, you don't want to break that winning combination? Or is it now Hines and Atkinson going forward? What do you reckon, mate?
Well, speaking on the point that Will was talking about on how vocal Daniel Atkinson is, I don't think you can have in your side going into a finals with Hines and Atkinson, both vocal players, like game managing players, trying to get their side around for finals win. I just don't see both of them. So I think they do go back to Nico Hines and Trindle there, running into the final series. Yeah, I just think Nico has it there to win. We see like in Origin, he's gone through all that criticism, and like what he's faced is just something that's built his character. And I really think he is also the Iceman of Cronulla. We see a lot of rap around Daniel Atkinson, but I feel like you're gonna have to go with the experience combination there. It hasn't really led them too far, but I feel like Nico Hines can this time. But I do think Sharks are definitely contenders as well, like they did in 2016 there. I think they can if they keep. I just like a guy like Nikora. He doesn't get enough rap on how well he plays, and I think Will can definitely agree with me on this one. They definitely have the impact off the bench with Hamyon Ueli and Royce Hunt there. So it's just going to see how they play and who's going to manage the side. I just think they're looking for Nico to really stand up in this final series, and I think Atkinson has done well enough to get him here, and I think it's really Nico's time to take over.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. You go, Will.
For me is Nico and Nikora have a very good combination together, so that's why I think I want to try to keep that combination too.
I think, yeah, that's probably. I mean, let's be real. As soon as Nico Hines is back, you put him back in because as great as Atkinson has been, he's not the man that can win you a premiership. He can definitely be a part of the pie, a piece of the puzzle to get you there. But he's not that. He's not the superstar that is Nico Hines. He's fantastic in what he's doing, Atkinson. But I think Hines is that player that they need that can really elevate you to winning a premiership. Whether or not that's this season, probably not. Maybe next season with Adam Fanua-Blake coming in. We'll have to wait and see. But it is just a really big question, even heading into next season. What's Atkinson doing? If he is not their starting 5'8" going forward, if they do go back to Hines and Trindle, surely another club is just snapping at his heels to try and sign him because he has well and truly proved that he is a first-grade player. The big thing I liked about the Sharkies in this one is, again, we mentioned players just turning up. The thing for the Sharkies, I've always been a little bit not concerned's not the word, but there's something about their forward pack that has been missing. Now, we mentioned Fanua-Blake coming in next season. He's probably the man to fix that. But they have a really split down the middle, almost like 40 minutes between all of their front rowers. They're very typical to play, whether it's, Korfusi, Rudolph, Hamlin-Welle, Hunt, Hazelton, they've Finucane earlier this season. They've very much had all these fantastic middle forwards. Jack Williams, who's found himself at starting lock at the moment with McInnes playing halfback. All these players that very much just split down the middle minutes and get through your job for the time that you're on the field. But in this game, they all did that essentially just to a more degree. Oregon Kaufusi punched out 54 minutes, which I believe is a season high, 160 meters from him, where Jack Williams punched out 75 minutes and 130 meters himself, 38 tackles. Siosifa Talakai moving into the centers had 224 meters. Jesse Ramian, 226 meters. Everyone in this side really pulled their weight. I really like Hamlin-Welle and Royce Hunt as their sort of bench forwards at the moment. I do think Hunt will potentially be moving on at the end of the season, whether it's to the Tigers or to another club. We'll have to wait and see. But they all really stood up in the big moments in this one. And I guess the thing about the Knights is, while we were a bit more critical on them because of their half situation and whatnot, they stood up and matched them all the way. As I said, if that field goal's actually given, they're the winners in this one. And even on their side of the field, Jaden Brayley played the entire game at hooker, punched out 55 tackles as well. And Kai Pearce-Paul getting his long-awaited first try in the NRL, which is, I've essentially bet on him every single week. And this is the one week I didn't bet on him any scores. So I'm a bit off him for that. But look, they have their man. I thought Dane Gagai was unreal in the centers as well, especially up against Siosifa Talakai. So, look, it's an interesting one going forward for the Knights. We know that they need someone in their halves that can free up Kalen Ponga. The 93 meters is a bit concerning from someone as just dangerous as him. It's just the 12 runs as well, which isn't good enough from you need to free him up. I don't know how they do it. As you said, a lot of salary cap invested in a lot of players, especially Saifiti twins. Daniel Saifiti allegedly being shopped around. Dragons interested. Eels are apparently interested, though I'm not sure how much is going on there. But I don't know. It's just a really weird game, a really tough game, but a really enjoyable game. Did you guys enjoy the game at least?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I really loved it.
Yeah, good. And that's in the end. That's all it is.
I've got one more talking topic of just this game. Do we keep Cameron McInnes? Do they keep Cameron McInnes at 9?
For me, no. I think Blake Brayley, he's an Iron Man. I mentioned it the other day when Jaden Beryl got his debut. Now, Jaden Beryl, he won Queensland Cup Player of the Year. Actually, he might have won like the entire reserve grade Player of the Year 2-3 years ago. And the Sharks brought him across to essentially be a backup hooker. And I thought that was great because if you're winning reserve grade Player of the Year, keep in mind, reserve grade isn't just reserve grade players. It's all the NRL players who don't quite make the squad or are coming back from injury. Like there are NRL talent players that are in reserve grade. And Jaden Beryl won Player of the Year across the entire competition. Now, the Sharks brought him across. I thought it was great because it was like when, Blake Brayley has a few niggles or he's getting injured, maybe plays Origin, like you get Jaden Beryl in there. Now, it took Jaden Beryl until this year to get his debut at 29 years old because Blake Brayley has not missed a single game of footy.
It's ridiculous.
He's essentially one of the only hookers out there at the moment who's playing 80 minutes week in, week out. So how he does it, I don't know. Like I'm a big McInnes guy at hooker. I also love him at lock forward. And I think Jack Williams, who has filled in at like lock forward in this time, has been phenomenal. But for me, I don't think he can move Blake Brayley out of that role. So I'd be moving McInnes back to lock forward. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I think McInnes is probably one of the best locks in the game, so influential. And I think Blake Brayley's been too good a hooker for too long for them. As simple as that.
100%. Lads, that one actually wraps us up. That is round 24 done and dusted. Let's do a quick run through of who we are tipping ahead of round 25, and then we'll wrap this podcast up. So let's start things off. The West Tigers take on the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles on the Thursday game, 7:50 p.m, Leichhardt Oval. Will, you can start. Who you tipping? Your boys, the Tigers or the Sea Eagles?
Eagles 13 plus.
Not against his own team. That's sad. No, it's a fair call, mate. Fair call. I think I'll be joining you on the Eagles train. Look, they're just playing really good. I'm also finally biting my tongue and buying Tom Trbojevic in Supercoach this week just so I can captain him against the Tigers, unfortunately. Callum, who have you got, Tigers or Sea Eagles, mate?
Eagles 13 plus. I think Tigers will just rest a couple players going to that round 27 match. So
for them, their grand finals in round 27. They've got the monkey off the back now. They can just they can rest up. They can, there's a lot of young players in their team too. Luke Lauli'i, Lockie Galvin playing fantastic games, and they're still teenagers. So give them a rest. I don't know if they will rest them, but I don't think they're really going to be playing at their absolute hardest. And the thing with the Sea Eagles is they're really playing their hardest at this point of the season. So we're all on the Sea Eagles 13 plus. Next up, the New Zealand Warriors take on the Bulldogs, allegedly Go Media Stadium, Auckland. But as we stated earlier, the stadium has officially been renamed this week to Shaun Johnson Stadium, Auckland. Warriors 14th, Bulldogs 5th, 6 p.m. on the Friday. Will, who have you got, mate?
Waz 112.
Yeah.
Love it. Callum, what are you backing? Are you with him?
Yeah, I'm with him. Was 1 to 12. I thought he'd take the words out of my mouth, which he did.
That's it. I'm respected, boys. I'm also backing the Waz 1 to 12. This is their last game at home for the rest of the season, which is the last game Shaun Johnson will ever play in New Zealand.
How many can they fit in there?
Let's find out the quick Go Media Stadium capacity.
I reckon they'd just stack it out.
It's a 25,000 person capacity.
Sell 50,000 tickets, NRL.
Yeah.
You're listening, sell 50,000.
Yeah, sell 50,000. Get them hanging from the rafters. Get them sitting on top of the bloody bleachers. Have them on the field if I care, but genuinely sell it out. It is a sold out stadium. I think the Warriors, look, I don't have much faith in how they've been playing footy, but for all the reasons, their last home game of the season, they have a reason to get up for it. Maybe the Bulldogs rest. I don't know if they do, but I will also take my boys, Warriors 1-12 in that one. That moves us into the next game. The first time we actually get to mention your Broncos in this episode, Callum, because they were on the bye. But the Broncos take on the Eels, 10th versus 16th. That's at Suncorp. I'll give you first go. Who are you backing, mate?
Premiership hopefuls still. Let's bring it back, all right? We get Walsh and Haas back towards running into the finals, I think. Broncos 13+. Thank
13+ against the Eels is a big call, mate.
Yeah. We'll give Fanshaw's Will's Tigers some hope.
Yeah, okay. Well, Will, who have you got?
Parramatta Eels 1-12.
Yeah,
Wow, here we go. I think he's just doing that to hate you, but no, I actually don't mind the tip. So, I don't know who I'm taking.
No Walsh, no Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, no ma'am either.
Yep.
Renault's just steer the ship. Injury free, thank God. Touch wood.
I'm not sure. It's a tough one, but I actually think I'm going to back the Eels as well. I think they've shown enough recently. They weren't the best against the Roosters, but I do think the outs for the Broncos are too big. Maybe if it was just Haas and just Mam, which is, they beat the Cowboys without them anyway. But Reece Walsh, I think they're going to miss him severely as well. So I'll take the Eels 1-12 in this one. That moves us into the next game. Canberra Raiders taking on the Penrith Panthers, GIO Stadium, Canberra, 3 p.m. Now, team lists aren't out yet. Do we expect Panthers to rest anyone for this game?
No.
Nope. No Iceman, no problem. Panthers 30+.
30+?
Yep.
What? Yep. That is an egregious call by Will in that one. Panthers 30+ is mental. Callum, are you reciprocating that?
I am. I'm going Raiders 1-12. It might sound a bit dumb, but I'm a smart tipper. With the Raiders, there's something. I think it's every time they've been absolutely destroyed, they come back at home and they've turned around. I think it was a 20-something deficit 6 times in a row. Loss 6 times in a row. So I don't think they'll break the streak, and they'll do it for Ricky running into the back half. And I think Jamal Fogarty's going to have an absolute blinder, and same as KO Weeks.
Interesting. I actually don't mind it. I do have a bit of a gut feel about the Raiders. I don't know what it is. I just saw this game and I'm like, ooh, Raiders in Canberra. Do they get it done? But then I remembered it's a Panthers team that's coming off a loss, and I never want to tip against the Panthers coming off a loss. If the Panthers beat the Storm and they maybe were just feeling riding high and pretty heading into this game, I'd take the Raiders. But
first time for everything.
Have to take it. It could be a first time for everything, mate, but I will be taking the Panthers. I'll go 1-12, though. I reckon it'll be a close one. That one is the Raiders and the Panthers. Next up, Melbourne Storm take on the – what do you guys reckon? Is it the Dolphins or is it Redcliffe Dolphins to you guys?
Redcliffe Dolphins.
Don't want to get in trouble.
No, I'm a Redcliffe Dolphins guy. No team should just be called the whatever. It's the Redcliffe Dolphins. This one's in Amy Park, Melbourne, though, 5:30 p.m. on the Saturday. We'll start with you, Will. Storm or Dolphins?
Storm 13+. Harry Grant just crossed the line.
Oh, very big call. Very big call. I actually like it. I wouldn't hate it for Supercoach either. I need Harry Grant to do something for me. Callum?
I definitely think Storm 13+. Dolphins can pack their bags and book a vacation to Bali. I think Pappenhausen's going to go absolute rampant. Let's go Pappenhausen for 3 and Harry Grant for 1 because he's in my fantasy.
That is, that's some big calls coming from the lads. I don't know. Again, we're talking about no team list being released. Obviously, this being recorded on the Monday, probably released on the Tuesday before team lists. I don't know if Storm rest now that they're 2 wins clear of Panthers. They could, but I don't think they do because it's in Melbourne. I reckon they'll rest on away trips. So I think I'll back the Melbourne Storm as well. I'll back them 1-12. I think the Dolphins get up for it playing for their season, but I will still be taking the Melbourne Storm in that one. That leads us into the Rabbitohs and the Knights, 15th versus 11th, Accor Stadium, Sydney, 7:35 p.m. on the Saturday. Who have we got here? We'll start with you, Callum.
Oh, it's tough. If the Knights names Hastings, it just helps Ponga a bit, and I think that'll be key. But I think Rabbits losing to the Tigers is just going to burn them. We saw the coach and staff in the box celebrating early, and they've got the Rabbitohs going suicides right now as we speak. So I think Rabbitohs getting up 1-12.
Fair call. Will, who have you got, mate?
Rabbitohs 1-12. Jai Gray anytime.
Oh, I like the dry grey call, but I'm going against you lads here. I'm taking the Knights. We forget, it was about 3 minutes before full time, Cody Walker went off with a head knock. So he'll miss this game under concussion protocols. And I don't think they can get it done without Cody Walker at halfback. So I will be taking the Knights, and I'll take them 13+.
Dion will steady the ship.
Dion, he should be back from injury, to be fair. It was only a head knock for Dion. So, yeah, Dion back at halfback. Hopefully he can have a good game, Dion. I'd love to see him rip and tear in the NRL. Lads, that moves us into Titans and Roosters. 13th versus 3rd at 2 p.m. Seabus Super Stadium, Gold Coast on the Saturday. Who have we got, Will?
Roosters 20+.
20+ is a massive call.
Victor Radley anytime try scorer.
Ooh, Victor. I actually don't mind that. Is he still second rower? Oh, he might be lock. Who knows? Because Connor Watson's also out. But
Might be.
Regardless, I think he could cross in whatever position he's in. Callum, who have you got?
It's a tough one because we did see Seabus sort of this time. I think it was a couple of years back when the Titans versus the Roosters in an elimination final, and the Roosters got the better of them. So I think Titans have stuck that to the heart. But I just can't see him getting up. But I do think it'll be end-to-end battle, backs battle, high point scoring game. Both teams scoring 30+. But Roosters 1-12. Roosters
okay, I like it. Wow, okay, I like it. I would love to see it, and I do think there's something about it being in the Gold Coast that the Titans do get up for it. Their season's over now. They also let Kieran Foran down in his 300th, which we forgot to mention. Congratulations to Kieran Foran for reaching 300 games, an unreal achievement, outstanding milestone. But the Titans, they did let him down a bit as a club in his 300th. So now back at home, they get that chance to redeem themselves. In saying that, I will take the Roosters and I'll take them 13+, just because I think their attack is too good for the Titans to defend. It could very well be end-to-end. Just neither team can defend each other, which I'd love just from a footy standpoint to watch that. But I'll take the Roosters. I'll take them 13+ in that one. Leads us into the final game of round 25. Let's wrap things up with the Derby, Shane Flanagan Cup. The Dragons taking on the Sharks, 8th versus 4th, Win Stadium, Wollongong on Sunday, 4:05 p.m. Callum, you kick us off. Dragons or Sharkies, mate?
Well, I'm a bit biased because the Broncos want to make the 8, so I'm going to go Dragons. Sharks 13+. Daniel Atkins. Ronaldo Mulatalo to score 2, Jesse Ramian to go for 2 as well.
Oh, Jesse Ramian 2 would be unbelievable. I've owned him in Supercoach all season, and I love him to death. Will, mate, who have we got?
Multi of the round, this one.
Okay.
Dragon 13+. Jacob Little anytime.
Oh, God. Bit of bias in that, or?
Along with Zach Lomax, Christian Tuipulotu, and Ben Hunt.
I'm paying like $3,000 or something. That's mental.
Multi of the round. Put it on the tips post, please.
Dragons 13+. Look, I don't know where I sit in this one. Shane Flanagan against his former club. Is he going to have the Dragons up for it?
And remember,
in Wing Stadium, Wollongong. They're good in Wollongong. Oh, I might back them. I might go Dragons, but I will go 1-12. If anything, I reckon it could be a 1-6 performance. Could be decided very, very close in this one. I love a Ramian call as a try scorer. Anyone else that stands out for me for the Dragons? No, but somehow I think they're going to win. So I'll back the Dragons in a very close one there to close out round 25 and then to wrap up this podcast. So, lads, thank you very much for joining me on another decently longish one here, but I've enjoyed getting to sit down and chat some footy with you guys and really, just get inside your minds and connect a bit more with you. So do you want to, tell the lads what you got going on in the upcoming weeks over on Fantasy Fanatics?
Yeah, we pretty much just got tomorrow we'll be filming with Jai from Blindside, and then we're giving one of the smaller creators a chance to hop on one of our videos and give them a chance, which will be round 26, the NRL Fantasy Zone, a pretty new one, and then I think round 27 will just be back to the OGs, wrapping it off with all three of us, Callan, Charlie, and me, and then next year we'll be back even better. We're going to BBL Supercoach, starting a BBL Supercoach Fanatics, so all jump over there. But next year full pre-season, we got a lot planned. Please tune in.
Love to hear that, lads. We mentioned at the start we've all sort of become into this little community all through the Casual Athlete and the work that they've done to sort of get us all here, which has been really good. Love connecting with you. Love having just a bunch of different people on the podcast all the time when I can. I'm sure we'll work again a lot heavier heading into next season. A lot of plans that we have over on Chip and Chase as well. And I'm sure that with all of us going on, Jai, Bergs, you guys, everyone along the way, we can all make a bit of a community and make a lot of content next season. So for all my followers that aren't following you guys, definitely go check them out, especially if NRL Fantasy is your biz. If you're over here just as a Supercoach player and you're wanting to branch into them, or if you're, a fantasy player that's sort of wanting to branch into Supercoach and that's why you're following me and you're not following these guys, go and do so, guys. Of course, link will be in the description of the YouTube episode. If you're over on the Instagram, we'll have the post that links to their page as well. So go check out NRL Fantasy Fanatics. Lads, Will, Callum, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.
Cheers. Thanks for having us.